Way to the place where we are. We ask your blessings. We ask your guidance. We ask that you lead us down the path that we should go. Lead us into the right way and the right things that we should do for our county. We thank you for our citizens and for all who have come tonight. We ask these blessings in your name. Amen. Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Water County Commission meeting, Monday, November 15th, 2010, 5 p.m. Our first order of business is to address the agenda. Are there any additions or other changes to the agenda?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we've got 3 items being pulled from this agenda entirely, items 12, 19, and 16. I would also note that the general business item number 6, the title in the most recent agenda outline is not correct. It should reflect report on protest regarding RFP 2010-05 and county administrator's recommendation to reject all bids and rebid the project, which is slightly different. Same subject matter, but slightly different. And also there was an add-on today that I've recommended for consent at the appropriate time. It's a simple item requesting board approval for a road closure for the Panacea Waterfront Christmas Parade on December 4th. And finally, I wanted to add a presentation of new County Fire Chief Bill Ward.
The presentation will be in the presentation. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just have quick verbal reports under county attorney items on 2 recent court rulings.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add 1 awards and presentations, if I may.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, this first reminder, I would just like to switch the order of my items under 18 so that D precedes C. And then have any consent items been pulled?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I guess I would like to pull 7, 9, and 10.
We'll have an announcement at the end of the meeting.
I intend to pull item 3 off the consent. Okay, so let's just do, since there were quite a few changes, let's go over these pulled items with 12, 16, and 19. Consent agenda to be pulled, intending to be pulled 3, 7, 9, and 10. Additional awards and presentations. Mr. Pingree has Chief Ward. And add-on consent item, which was the Panacea Waterfront road closure.
I believe 19 on the concerns table. Did you say that one? Okay, thank you.
And there was a correction to the title of number 6, now under general business, to report on the protest. And Commissioner Stewart had an announcement to be added. Is that all of the changes? And the two announcements by the county attorney. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, with those changes, entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Brock to approve the agenda with the changes noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business are two public hearings. County Attorney.
Thank you. First item is a request the board to conduct a public hearing and adopt a proposed ordinance which amends Ordinance 2009-09, which is your comprehensive sewer ordinance, which is codified in Chapter 31, Article 2. This provides procedures for the reservation of sewer capacity and really accomplishes a couple of things. First, the proposed ordinance provides various amendments to the sewer ordinance. It provides a more detailed process for developments to reserve sewer capacity from the county by making amendments to Section 31.022. And furthermore, this ordinance will require those previously permitted developments with conditional capacity commitments who have not developed to also go through this process within 1 year of the effective date of the ordinance, or just have their capacity commitments waived. With that, I can go into additional detail if you want, but this is a public hearing.
Move to approve to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 2009-9, the Wakulla County Comprehensive Sewer Ordinance, codified as Chapter 31, Article 2 of the Code of Ordinances, to provide procedures for reservation of sewer capacity.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Brock and a second by Commissioner Arts to approve option 1 as listed. I should mention, if anyone wants to speak on to these public hearings or any other agenda item, you need to fill out a Citizens to Speak card. It's located to my right, and you're allowed 3 minutes. Also, there's a open period on the agenda, Citizens to be Heard, which we try to get to sometime between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. That also requires a speaker's card to be filled out. Okay, we have do we have any citizens to speak on this issue early? Okay. Any board discussion at this point in time?
This is a long time coming. This is a good ordinance. It really is. I appreciate you developing this.
I totally agree with you, Commissioner Stewart, that we don't have a formal procedure in place, and this is certainly going to fill a needed gap, and so that we can not only do better planning, but also have the developers understand what their situation is as growth proceeds. Okay? No further discussion. We'll call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. County Attorney?
Thank you. The second item, ordinance up for public hearing, is a request board to approve and conduct the public hearing and adopt a proposed ordinance establishing a process for forgiveness or reduction of code enforcement liens. There are a couple parts to this ordinance. You can see they're divided by A and B. The first is for satisfaction and release of code enforcement liens. It sets up a process for the administrator to do this when the liens have been actually fully paid. The second is, however, sets up a process for staff and citizens to come forward when you may have a code enforcement lien that has been accruing and the property owner is seeking this board's indulgence to reduce or abate the amount of the lien. I can go into additional detail. This did go to code enforcement when this came back to you all seeking requests to advertise, we did let you know that code enforcement actually would like this to go to them first. That's a procedural process. You can do that. At that time, you elected not to, and to just bring it forward as is. If you wanted to make any minor changes, we could do that from the floor tonight. Otherwise, if it's a substantial change that you want to do in the process, we could continue the hearing and bring it back at a future date. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question. Would the change that we discussed earlier in the day be a substantial change?
Where we actually put in a formal process where it would go to Code Enforcement Board first?
Yes.
I would probably continue, if the board wanted to do that, I would probably continue the public hearing and bring back the ordinance at a different date. I mean, we could continue it without technically the need to re-advertise, but I'd like to work on that wording instead of working it from the floor tonight.
Okay. I'm just mentioning that because I have received emails regarding that and just for board discussion. Yes.
Well, and how about the change that we discussed today where we talked about having it where it should go to the board, and if they have, the code enforcement board, if they have concerns, they can bring it up to us. Is that a substantial change?
I think if we just inserted a sentence that said once you get applications, they would be forwarded to the Code Enforcement Board, and if they desired to comment on it to the board, they could. I think that would be a change we could make tonight without it affecting the title or the real substance of the ordinance.
And that's the change I had talked to her about, and that would be considered minor.
Okay, so can we go over that?
I moved, will that maybe put a motion on the table?
I just would like that information.
You want to? I think what I had discussed with the commissioners separately, they both sort of had the same idea, was in paragraph B of the proposed ordinance, which is entitled Applications for Reduction or Forgiveness of Code Enforcement Liens. How this works is that a property owner seeking a reduction or forgiveness would put in an application to county administration for processing. Upon receipt of the application, the county administrator will do certain things, go out and confirm that the property is, been brought into compliance. At that point, you could also direct the county administrator to provide notice of this application and any additional backup to the Code Enforcement Board so that the Code Enforcement Board could meet and make a recommendation on that application if they desired. It wouldn't be mandatory, but if it was an important property or an important point for the Code Enforcement Board, they would have the opportunity to inject in the process.
And your attachment where we discussed doing this would be attachment number 1, page 4 of 6, paragraph 2, following a new sentence at the end of paragraph 2.
We'll go over that again, I think.
Page 4 of 6. There's letters and numbers. Paragraph 2, what Heather and I had discussed with having another sentence at the, and I'm ready to see what Linda has to say, so I'm just helping out people find it, and having an additional sentence added to that paragraph.
Right. And what I liked about that is that notice is given to the Code Enforcement Board. If they have a meeting scheduled in the time, fine, they have the ability to call a special meeting if they want to discuss it, but it doesn't delay, because there are cases where, for example, if someone inherits a property or wants to purchase a property that has a lien on it, they would want a speedy resolution, and these fines accrue daily also. So I think this is a way to not slow down the process, but to still give code enforcement an opportunity to make a recommendation to the board if on any case they so desire.
Do you have suggested language?
Also, one sentence, just at the time that the county administrator received the application, they would notify the Code Enforcement Board.
So, the sentence that I had discussed with the county attorney was something to the effect of, the administrator shall forward to the code board the application relevant materials. They may provide its recommendation, and they may provide the recommendation to the BoCC if desired.
And that would basically take away that thing of going to staff, or...
One way or the other, staff, my understanding is staff will be looking at it. If it's going back to the code enforcement board, if it's going back to us, staff still will be writing their summation of what happened, why it's happening, and making a book report. So that's going to happen no matter who it comes to, because staff has to prepare the agenda item. And they get an agenda item prepared for the board of county commissioners, they get an agenda item prepared for the code enforcement board.
So would staff be making a recommendation?
They may have the ability to make a recommendation, but the same way often our agenda items say board discretion, they probably could just say board discretion. That would be a decision left to staff.
Okay. So we need a motion at this point?
Well, does that satisfy what you wanted, or do we need to table it to satisfy? I mean, that's a significant change that you had. Does this satisfy that, or no?
Well,
Two different things.
I think the concern was, at least the way I read it from the emails I received, was that there was a concern of there being some conflict between what the staff might be saying and what the code enforcement board might be saying. And so that if staff went to the code enforcement board, and then code enforcement board went to us, or came to us, then they would have no problem with that. And so that's what I wanted at least the board to be aware of.
This enables them to still have, it keeps the code board involved, so they can come up and provide their opinion also if they feel a need. So it's keeping their voice active, but it's not necessarily eliminating what you're trying to eliminate. I'm not sure there's a way to...
No, I'm not trying to...
we're discussing
I'm
that.
just sort of passing on the concerns, just in case someone else hadn't received them. So, as a matter of fact, one of those speaker cards is from code enforcement. So, would you want to hear the speakers first, maybe, and then provide the...
whatever you feel, I'll leave to your discretion.
There's only two speakers. Let's
Because we may table it, or we may be able to satisfy it with this one minor change and approve it tonight.
So, Elise Barwick.
Thank you for letting me speak. And I'm not really sure how, with all the talk y'all were doing, which way I should be talking, but I know that this affects me greatly because of a piece of property that I have where there's a subdivision that has been built since the property, we have a seafood business on the property that has been there since the 60s, and we are just having, or have had, problem after problem with the housing people, the people that live in the houses that are there by our property. And right now, with the economy the way it is, with we have accrued penalties. We've been working, Miss Jamie and I have worked diligently on this, and I have finally come into compliance with it. But with the economy the way that it is, and with it being a seafood business, there is absolutely no way that I have the means to pay the liens that are on this. And I would really like for y'all to consider the small business people that are hurting right now when you're talking about liens and all, and also to consider that this county is growing, there's no doubt about it, but the properties that were already there, that somehow or another they need to be considered as much as the new developments too. And so, but thank you very much for letting me have this moment to speak. And I think this provides an avenue for you to make a request regardless of which of the procedures we...
Okay, well, that's what, I'm not, like I said, I'm not really sure, listening to y'all get it bouncing back and forth. I just don't know, but... It
wouldn't affect you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Ron Pisecki.
Good evening. Ron Pisecki. I'm Chairman of the Code Enforcement Board. First of all, since I'm not going to be here later, I just wanted to congratulate Commissioner Green, Commissioner Kessler on great job, great service, and wish you the best, and thank you for serving Wakulla County. Back to this item. Our Code Enforcement Board met last Wednesday. This issue came back up again. The board voted 6-0 again in support of what we are proposing, and directed me to come here and speak to the board tonight. We have no problem with Part A. The Part B, and I think you've already heard comments discussing Part B. I've sent everyone an email today. Just a little background for some of you. Commissioner Arts is the only one that's ever come to one of our board meetings, I think. And we've got a very professional board. Thanks to Bethany, our county attorney, and Jamie, who's really done a super job. It's run much more professional than it ever has. Last year, the board approved and given subpoena power to the Code Enforcement Board. So it's actually run like an administrative court. Our witnesses, including Jamie, when she presents a case, she's sworn in under oath. Any property owner is sworn in under oath. And if it's a case that the county feels that they need legal counsel on, it's not the county attorney's office that represents them, but again, the board approved in the past that they are authorized to get private outside counsel to represent the county. The county attorney's office is the attorney of record for the Code Enforcement Board. And so it is run on a professional basis. The appointees are made by the board in staggered terms up to 3 years to overlap commissions so that we don't have if all commissioners were gone at one time, we wouldn't have a board turnover. We have two state employees. We have George Johnson, who's a realtor, Kathy Shira, who's an engineer. We have a small business person, and then you have three citizens on it. Almost every meeting we have at least 6 people, if not 7. And so the board takes the whole issues very serious. And before an item reaches the Code Enforcement Board, there's been a whole process that Jamie has gone through, and she can speak for herself with her cold or whatever. But she's working this case for probably 6 months before it ever comes to the Code Enforcement Board. She receives a complaint, she goes out to the property any number of times. She'll write letters to the property owners, she'll meet with them, she'll try to accommodate them. Do I have a limit on 3 minutes?
But could you get to the point of what the board's going to need to take action on tonight?
Yeah, the part on Part B that gave us the biggest heartburn is if it is written, goes to the county administrator, he's not going to act on it himself. He's going to turn it back to code enforcement staff because they're the experts. They're the ones that have all the background. They might find themselves in a position of getting caught either with political pressure or whatever to try to come up with a recommendation back to the Board of County Commissioners that may be opposite of what the Code Enforcement Board made.
If I could stop you there for 1 second and have some dialogue on this.
Okay.
From what I understand is they are just looking at the fines, lien, penalties that have been levied.
Right.
All right. So they would not be finding anything other than making a recommendation of leaving the fees alone or to reduce them to some level.
Well, the property owner, well, first of all, the code enforcement staff would make sure that the property is in compliance. That would be the first thing. And then they would look at the amount of the liens, current liens, and then the rationale behind the request for a reduction or forgiveness. And I think the board would be better served if this was referred back to the board, code enforcement board, for us to relook at it, because even though it's not legally a change in our decision that the property was out of compliance, it is a change in the amount of the liens that we placed on the property. And then let the code enforcement board come back to this board and say, yes, we agree that the changes should be made, or no, for the following reasons we do not. And that gives you, I think, the Board of County Commissioners another professional look at an issue, and I think it makes your job probably a little bit easier and gives you probably better legal support in case it was challenged further on down the road. I think the proposal that you're making would probably satisfy that it is coming back to the board, and we have the option, and how that would work is that Jamie then would prepare a case at our next code board meeting, and she would present the case back just like it was a new case. And so you would have that whole process with legal support coming back on it. And I don't think it would significantly delay. By the time it's going to get to that point, it's probably already at a minimum 8 or 9 months, because once we see it for 6 months, we usually give 30 or 60 more days for the people to clean it up before the fines commence. And only after that period of time, when they're not in compliance, that we then sign a lien. So it's probably 8 months after the property was complained and been worked on before the lien would be placed. And at the most, we would add 1 more month to the process.
During that time, are the fines and all still accruing? There needs to be some methodology in here to, once they file that they stop at that level and they don't keep increasing because we're adding an administrative burden.
Well, that could well be the date that it's stamped in, received the application. The daily fines could halt.
I don't want somebody to accrue more fees and penalties because we're dragging our feet, or we got some more process to go through.
I say, but if you guys decide not to abate or reduce them at all, then we have a little bit of a quagmire where they
let it pick back up when we make that judgment or that decision.
They're not going to have everybody applying because it gives them a month or so vacation.
Well, then I'm not going to be for adding to the process. I'm not going to burden the people more. That's not fair.
I agree.
In most cases, we're talking about $10 per day over and above on a daily basis, or some of them now are $25 a day.
It's $300 a month.
And I think that's why and I independently were trying to come up with a compromise that would still, we value code enforcement's input. We want that, but we don't want to delay the process because of the increased fines. And those situations I mentioned, if somebody dies and their heir inherits a property with a lien, or if somebody wants to buy a property but the lien's the holdup, having a quick resolution could be the difference between whether they sell the property or not. So I think the compromise accomplishes what you've been asking for, and I'm sorry that your board didn't have a chance to consider that proposal, but I think it achieves the end that you're trying to achieve.
If like as I understand it, that once it's received, it's sent to the code enforcement board, and we can review it or not.
Well, you're notified of it, but you would need to meet, the board would need to meet within the time frame that the...
Well, I think that may be the key. I think this board needs to give a window of 30 to 45 days or something like that to respond back to the application once it's received.
What would you estimate as the time that it would take for this review by the board, if it just is coming to the administrator and then the board? What's your estimate?
Who are you asking now?
I'm asking Jamie
Has
and
to come up to the microphone.
Mr. Pingree or Heather.
While she's coming, let me just add, I agree with what y'all want to do here. I just want to add that caveat in there that we have a mechanism to cease that accumulation of the fines.
She's sick, so I'm just adding.
The fines won't accrue as long, once the property's in compliance, the daily fine stops.
So when we make their application for a reduction or whatever, or elimination of the fees, then it's already in compliance and there's no further accrual.
Correct.
So I think, Heather, correct me, doesn't the ordinance require that before they can make application for a reduction, it's got to be in compliance?
They have to believe they're in compliance, and then we have to verify it, though.
So the application would come in, and then the first step would be Jamie to go out and make sure it was.
If it was,
And if
That
it
is
is,
the
then
first step.
that freezes the accumulation further.
And that is already the first step written in here.
So as far as the additional,
so either way, it's not going to be an increase in time, you're saying?
Unless it's not in compliance, and then they have a different issue
Correct.
to deal with.
But either of the suggested alternatives really don't increase time.
Well, the timing, though, is still important, not just because fines are accruing, but because they may be wanting to sell the property, or they may be wanting to do something else with it where they'd want a quick resolution. But this is a policy decision, and we can really write it either way.
from a timing standpoint, you don't know when the application is coming in relationship to the code enforcement meetings or to board meetings. But Jamie would have to go through the same analysis for the Board of County Commissioners that she currently does for the code enforcement board.
Did I miss the answer to my question? Okay, just on average, a ballpark figure, how long do you think it would take from when an application was received for you to go through all these steps, make sure it was in compliance, and find all of this other supporting information to put on an agenda for a county commission meeting?
Depending on when we got the application, we would have to meet administration's deadlines as well. So you're looking at 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, on administration's deadlines to get prior to what's coming on the next meeting.
And what's your time? I understand that there could be up to 3 weeks to get it onto our agenda, but what's your time? How much work before that?
Once we receive the application, we should have everything handy within the file, and then we would have to do the inspection to confirm that the property is within compliance, which could be done within that week.
Okay.
So you're looking at least 4 weeks.
Okay, and if there's a code enforcement meeting that falls within that window, it would be no special meeting required. If it doesn't, then you could call a special meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we could live with that.
No, I just have a question. No, please, get well. The question we said about code enforcement meetings, the only code enforcement meetings I was aware of were the ones that are regularly scheduled to hear cases. Do you have other?
No, we meet just once a month. Second Wednesday of every month at 5:30.
Without cases?
No,
With cases?
we have enough cases that we could have meetings twice a month instead of.
I haven't seen the new system, but I've been to, I think when you've been on the code enforcement board, I've been there.
But we usually have 3 to 4 new cases every week, or every month that we go through. This last week we had 4 cases again.
Okay. All right, so we're ready for a motion. There's further board discussion, but let's get a motion on the floor.
Approved to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance establishing a process for forgiveness or reduction of code enforcement liens with the additional line mentioned earlier.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Brock with the added sentence to the attachment page 4 of 6, parentheses 2, at the end, as noted. Seconded by Commissioner Arts. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. We're into the awards and presentation section of our agenda. The first announcement is the announcement of the Farm family, DRP Force, the announcement of Farm to City breakfast as well, and Scott Jackson.
Good evening. How are y'all doing tonight?
Good. Doing well.
It's my pleasure this evening to invite all of you and the public to our annual Farm City breakfast next week, and that will be on the 24th of November. We're going to be there at 7 a.m. early in the morning with the chickens and the cows, and have everything going for you. Farm Bureau is our sponsor of the Farm City breakfast, and traditionally Farm City Week celebrates the connections between farmers and the urban folks that make things work for all of us. And Wakulla County agriculture is more than just a nice tradition. You know, you've got just the values of self-reliance that we've kind of inherited from our ancestors, and our farm family that we've chosen this year really brings that home. These are third generation farmers, and without further ado, I'm going to bring them on up here and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Mr. Pee Wee Ross and his wife Delinda. We'll talk to them about it. Each year, the North Florida Fair selects an outstanding farm family. So during this time, they were our representatives, and they've also been representing Wakulla County agriculture for a number of years now. Mr. Ross bought his farm from the maternal side in 1963, and so he's been on the same family farm now since then. But he grew up on the family farm with his dad, and so he's been involved with farming all his life. They've raised 5 children there. They have a number of cattle there. They have 60 head of cattle. They have a haying operation, and they've moved into some other things now. They've also moved into hydroponics and have a little bit of that going on. They also invite their 6 grandchildren to come over many times to learn and see what's going on the farm. Is something that they enjoy, and it's also a model for what we can do as far as agritourism goes, and letting people know about just different experiences that you can have back on the farm. One of those experiences that they do every year is they have cane syrup making, and they can maybe tell you about that, if not today, at the Farm City breakfast next week. And so with that, I'm going to let them say a few words about their operation, and we want to congratulate them and let you welcome the outstanding farm family for 2010, Pee Wee Ross and Delinda Ross.
It's really a pleasure to accept this award. It's kind of a surprise because I don't count myself as a farmer as per se. I'm a gentleman farmer because, as most of you are aware, making a living on a farm has got to be pretty significant size farm. But we do enjoy the farm. We grew up on it, and I think it's something that it's a lost tradition. I look backwards in my life and realize that growing up on the farm, it just sets lots of values that I think our kids today miss. And it's just been a privilege to have an opportunity to grow up on a farm, and then also now to be able to allow my grandkids and my children to grow up. But more than that, we use our farm, and we have lots of things going on, and we've always tried to open it up to our communities and have the fun and fellowship and allow other people to come in and see and have the same experiences we have and share. We started making cane syrup about 7 years ago, and that's been a tradition that has been much fun. We don't make any money doing it, but it's still worth all the money that we put out and the time and effort that we put in that effort, because it gives back a tradition to allow our friends and our family in Wakulla County to come over and share that with us. So it's with gratitude and great appreciation that we accept this award, and we thank Wakulla County for it.
appreciate your support of our county agriculture, and look forward to seeing those of you that can make it next be Wednesday. And if you're interested and you're in the public, then you can RSVP to our office, and that's 926-3931. We'd love to have you there. We also want to remind folks about our new farmers market in Sop Choppy that's coming up, and that will also be going on the week of Thanksgiving. So if you're not into the Black Friday sale, you can get out to Sop Choppy on that weekend on Friday and Saturday and get something good to take home with you. And also remind you that food security for many folks, people are still hungry in many places in our county, and we do have bins at our office, at the Chamber of Commerce, and at the BoCC office. So we appreciate you filling those up for the food pantries in the area too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, also in our consent agenda is we're approving the proclamation declaring November 19th through the 26th as National Farm City Week, so I want to make sure the citizens do that.
Thank you. We move on to an announcement by Commissioner Arts on recycling.
Yes, this coming Thursday, November 18th at 4 o'clock in this room, we're going to have an organizational meeting for our recycling task force. And we want participation from all across the county. We're really going to be an action-oriented task force. We're going to look at what's currently available in the county, try to increase recycling opportunities, expand the number of variety of items that can be recycled, and try to increase the amount that we collect each month in terms of recycled items. So we need people who represent schools, the community at large, private businesses, county government. We're looking for a lot of enthusiastic, hard-working people with some good ideas. If you can't attend on Thursday, please let myself or Pamela Joy know your preferences for meeting times and dates, because we're actually going to set a regular meeting schedule at that first meeting. So I hope to see a lot of you there.
You also had another presentation.
Every county commission functions as a team, some better than others. And you may have heard the expression that teams are greater than the sum of their parts. I recently went to a session in the Advanced Commissioner Certification course, and they did an exercise that demonstrated that. Everybody did something that gave them an individual score, and then they did that same activity as a group. And every single group, the team score was better than the average of the individuals, than almost every single individual, and in some cases, every individual. So it really is true. When people work together as a team, they can accomplish more than themselves individually. For the past 2 years, I think this county has had a very effective team in place. I think this board has raised the bar for collegiality and respectful discourse. And I would contend also for productivity. This board's accomplishments are many, too many to list in just a few minutes, but I'm going to hit a few of the high points. We acquired a 22-acre property and are well on our way to having an operating community center for our youth. The courthouse is now getting its long overdue renovations. The Welcome Center was repaired and reopened. We expanded our waterfront park in Panacea through acquisition of the Big Bend Maritime Center site. Rock Landing Dock was completed. We built a new safe bridge over Buckhorn Creek. To improve coastal water quality, we took the Talquin sewage treatment plant offline, no small feat. In preparation for upgrading our own wastewater treatment plant, we've run reuse line from Otter Creek to the golf course at Wildwood. We've completed a stormwater study to identify basins in the Color Gardens, and construction plans are nearly completed. We've also improved construction practices to reduce the likelihood of homes flooding. Finally, we've obtained funding to substantially improve the roads in the Color Gardens, which is being done now. During these tough economic times, we've worked hard, with maybe mixed success, to reduce county expenditures in this past year especially. Just last week, we've started tracking utility expenditures, something that will allow us to continue to reduce cost. We've also diversified our tax base and substituted more fair user fees for less fair property taxes when possible. Impact fees will help to keep existing taxpayers from shouldering the costs associated with new development. Through MSBU's, funding for all fire and rescue services is now based on the service benefits received. Economic development and job creation in this tough climate has been no small challenge. We chased stimulus dollars as aggressively as we could, and we submitted no small number of grants. One grant yielded funds to increase employment opportunities in the nursery and landscaping trade. Another that we submitted and we'll hear about in February will offer green jobs, retraining, and employment for construction workers. We now have a local preference established, and many of the projects that I talked about earlier have provided work opportunities. I think Brent will attest that our courthouse now employs 60 to 75% of the people locally. One of our major accomplishments was obtaining new legal representation for the county from the top-notch firm of neighbors Giblin and Nickerson. Many county ordinances, contracts, and more have been greatly improved as a result. We put to bed the contentious and costly wetlands issue with a well-written, fair, and balanced new wetlands ordinance. We're well on our way to developing a town center and a vibrant downtown economy for Crawfordville, long desired by citizens. Today concludes the two-year term of this fine team. On balance, Wakulla County has been well served by this team and also by the talented and hard-working cadre of county employees who work with us. Tomorrow, a new team begins to form and go to work. On behalf of our entire team, I would like to thank the two team members who are stepping down. George Green is hands down one of the nicest gentlemen I have ever met. He has served with quiet dignity and distinction. He has logged the lion's share of office hours among us, providing immediate access when a citizen calls or stops by wanting to speak to a commissioner. At commission meetings, George listens thoughtfully and reserves his words of wisdom for key moments. He has also provided hope and inspiration to minority youth in our county, encouraging them to reach, to aspire, to lead. Chairman Howard Kessler is truly one-of-a-kind commissioner. No commissioner has ever devoted himself so tirelessly and completely to a county and its citizens. This county will never again see on such a large scale the highly personal constituent services that this gentleman has provided day in and day out. And that's merely one of his contributions. As a fiscal conservative, he has been a champion for the taxpayer and has been extremely frugal and careful with the people's money. He does his homework. He keeps county staff and his fellow commissioners on their toes with as many questions, challenges, and creative alternatives. Every commission needs at least one watchdog, and we've had one of the best. It has been my great honor and privilege to be part of this team and to serve with both Commissioner Kessler and Commissioner Green these past 2 years. I have learned from you. I will miss you, and I wish you well. As a small token of my esteem and gratitude, I have a small gift for both of you.
Thank you.
Please join me with the standing ovation.
So what you're doing is putting it down? Okay.
If you allow me, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go ahead and
Sure, thank you.
follow with this. On behalf of the board, the entire board, and I appreciate, she stole most of my thunder, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit about my appreciation and the board's appreciation for both you gentlemen. I'm going to start with you, George. Like Lynn said, you're not as vocal as some of us, but every time you open your mouth, the words of wisdom come forth, and I mean that from my heart. I count you as a friend here, as a fellow commissioner. I count you as a friend and outside these doors, and I look forward to seeing you on a regular basis. You're a statesman. You're quiet, but you're a statesman, a gentleman, and I think that goes without saying. That everything you do, I think you give great thought to. You do nothing in haste. And like Lynn said, you have certainly logged the most hours at the county commission office. And every time I go in there, you're there, and when I leave, you're there. And I think every citizen can take a lot of pride in saying that when they wanted to speak to a commissioner, you were available. So if you would, sir, come down, and I'm going to read this plaque to you. The Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County, Florida hereby recognizes and pays special tribute to Wakulla County's first post-Reconstruction African-American Commissioner, George N. Green, and to acknowledge his 4 years from 2006 to 2010 of dedicated service as District 2 County Commissioner, including 2 years as Vice Chairman, serving Wakulla County and its citizens. Presented November 15, 2010. And I want to thank you. Dr. Kessler, if you can just sit down and let me talk a little bit, then we'll get you up. That's okay. It's tough being a public servant. You know that. And I know that, and the rest of us too. While we have not always agreed, nor will we ever always agree, I can tell you that I appreciate you and what you've done for this county. Like Lynn said, you're a watchdog, and I think every board needs that. I think it's important to know that you've always done due diligence in your decision making, and I appreciate your efforts. I know that there has been no commissioner that has worked any harder than you out in the community, trying to make sure that you went, you looked, you talked to citizens, and like I said, you can't make them all happy, but at least you do due diligence in trying to get to the bottom of what needed to be done. And I thank you for that, and I thank you for your service. And we will miss you here on this county commission. And if you would, sir, come forward, and I'll read this plaque to you.
Just taking some notes, Commissioners.
As always, you're the note-takingest man I've ever seen. And that's a good thing. That's a compliment, by the way. The Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County, Florida hereby recognizes Howard Kessler, M.D., and to acknowledge his 8 years from 2002 to 2010 of dedicated service as District 4 County Commissioner, including 2 consecutive years as Chairman, serving Wakulla County and its citizens. Presented this day, November 15, 2010. Thank you very much.
Perfect entree, I think, to your comments, so I'll be brief in mine. But I do want to take just a quick moment, and this is an important announcement, to recognize Chief Bill Ward. Stand up for a moment. You've got our Class A's, right? We're good in them. Mr. Ward, Chief Ward, hails from Nashville, Tennessee. He's got 30 years of experience in fire service, most recently retired from North Naples. And he's been with us for many months, 6 months now. And really, I think his leadership has been very well received and will continue to have a positive impact. I do want to thank him. I also wanted to take a moment to let the board know that former Chief LaMarche has stayed on as a lieutenant, and he's going to be pursuing higher education to cross-train, if you will, and become a paramedic as well. But I think some of the changes that Commissioner Stewart is helping to shepherd with the board-approved oversight committee are important and critical for the community, and I believe Chief Ward is going to have a good, strong hand in implementing those visions into reality. So I just briefly wanted to welcome you aboard, sir, and thank you for your service.
Okay. All right. So, and I have a couple of announcements. One was, well, before I do that, I just want to thank Commissioner Arts and Commissioner Stewart for their very kind words. And I agree with Commissioner Arts. This has been a board that has worked well together. It doesn't have to be 5-0 to work well together, but it does have to be civil. And it does have to respect each other's ideas, and I think this board has done that. So I thank you very much, and I thank you for the privilege of having worked with you. I give thanks for the privilege of serving as county commissioner. I thank for having the opportunity to have met so many citizens throughout the county, to have visited their homes, to have entered a lot of their homes and received their hospitality. I don't think anyone can know the county, even growing up here, the way that an elected official can in entering the people's homes throughout the county. It's something different about it, and I think we're all privileged to have experienced that. Of the thanks, last but not least, certainly not least, is my wife. I went these 8 years, and I don't think that my wife anticipated me be doing what I was doing, and she was along every step of the way. And I really thank her for her support and her contribution to Wakulla County. I couldn't. It's just hard to imagine how much she has given of herself. And I also want to wish the incoming board the best of success for their tenure. So with that, I'll go on to other announcements. I did have on here the Wakulla Gardens water situation. Again, I don't want the commission is to forget that there's a serious problem in Wakulla Gardens with those wells, and I have a show and tell bottle, and if we take a break, I hope we don't have to take a break, but I'll give it to staff to share with you what water looks like coming out of a well in Wakulla Gardens after even filtration. It's ugly. But I do want to share, today was my last meeting at the CRTPA, the regional planning, transportation planning, and there were some interesting things that came out of that. One was that at one point, the statistic was brought up on transportation that on the average 19% of a household's money, revenue, goes to transportation. Never would have thought that. In some places it's 25%. It's really significant. And if we keep on doing the same thing that we've been doing, we can't expect anything better. And we have to start moving towards mass transportation, carpooling, whatever the item is, to reduce our consumption of oil. And think about moving people instead of about moving cars. They're both important, but we've had an emphasis over 50 years or so on just how we can move cars. We got to think more on how we can move people. The other thing that was approved today at the Regional Transportation Agency was some monies. We get a share according to our proportion, which we're low on the totem pole, but we do get a share, and that share allotted over the next 5 years, it totals $240,000. But what we did get, we got something else that really is not spelled out Wakulla County, but it is Wakulla County, and that is the idea of bike and pedestrian, set aside money. The goal to put $1 million aside for bike and pedestrian improvements was championed by this agency. And they now have actually in their budget for 2011 and 2012, they have set aside $500,000 in each one of those years. One of the major components of that is to improve our connectivity, look at sidewalks, and that capital city to the sea loop is up there. At the same time, it's like the stars are starting to align. A utility company, I forget the name of it, but they're looking for transmission lines through a huge section of the loop. And that requires them to do a lot of the work that we would have had to spend money on, getting that needs analysis and all the rest of the environmental studies. That's going ahead, it appears, and we're going to be on their time. So what looked to be an almost infinite in the future project is probably going to be within our lifetimes, and certainly sooner than most of us would have expected. So I just want to give you that happy news, and they wanted to do that breakdown between urban and rural, and we're 75% or more of that loop. So that's a bunch of money that's coming to us. So that's the end of my announcements, and again I thank everyone in the county for the privilege of having served you as your commissioner for 8 years.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, please.
I apologize for not getting this to you earlier. I would just like to make an announcement. Martin Luther King Day is coming up real soon, and we, the Wakulla County Christian Coalition, would like to announce a King holiday celebration on January the 17th, which includes a motorcade ride in from Hyde Park Church, as we did last year, into Crawfordville, with a program that includes a breakfast and a speaker. That's on January the 17th at 8:30. The parade, the motorcade, will begin at 8:30 from the Hyde Park Church into Crawfordville with a program at the Hudson Park on November the 17th, starting at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
I'm sorry. January the 17th.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No. Okay. So we'll move now on to the consent agenda, understanding that we will be coming back to citizens to be heard somewhere around 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. The consent agenda with the items pulled 3, 7, 9, and 10 for discussion, and other items that were pulled off of the and one added. Okay. So we'd entertain a motion for the amended consent agenda.
So moved.
And motion by Commissioner Stewart.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Green. Move the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Now we have 4 items pulled, and one item we're not, yours is fine now. So we have consent item 3. Now, if you're wanting to talk to this item, you need to fill out a speaker's card. Item 3 dealt with minutes of the last meeting. I know that we had approved for the 16th to be scheduled addressing the interim county attorney in transition type of administrator. Yep. The concern I had is that I have on the agenda under my items an item that speaks to that. Also, that were there any attachments that were produced for that meeting yet on the for tomorrow? Yeah.
You had an agenda outline that was distributed, I think, today or last week. I can't remember, but I don't know of any additional. Oh, yes. Tim, what is that? November 8th, I sent a memorandum to this board and the 2 commissioners-elect that just talked, the subject of it was County Administrator Transition Plan and Considerations. It just had relevant attachments such as state law, county charter, things that whether it's addressed to tonight's meeting or tomorrow's meeting or some future meeting that the commission would want to be cognizant of. I'm not planning on any additional agenda material for tomorrow.
Right, and that's what I wanted to clarify, because there was some confusion. I had received at least one citizen inquiry and requested clarification on that. So I'll make a motion. Well, I can't make a motion, but I'll entertain a motion to approve that item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Stewart and second by Commissioner Brock. There's one person to speak, and that's Mr. Hugh Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor. Martin Luther King Road. And I too have 2 dead plants I'd like to give you guys. This afternoon, I received what I guess was the agenda for tomorrow's special meeting in an email. I wanted to alert the TV watchers and anybody else that's interested. Consequently, I sent an email to all the commissioners asking for someone to pull the item. Dr. Kessler, in his usual steadfast fashion, pulled it. Number one, it's very short notice for an agenda to be sent like that. Notice was sent earlier of the meeting, but no agenda was on it. The day before is too short. Number two, hiring an interim administrator is on it. There's nothing. Where's the applicant pool? What notice was given to the general public, etc. Number three, I didn't think it was the intent of the board to hire a new interim administrator tomorrow. So I went back to the meeting tape. I went to the minutes. Neither mentioned hiring. Was everybody I talked to was their understanding that it was discussion, which I think is a significant difference from the intent of the agenda item that was voted on. What I'd like you to do is to go on record tonight saying that the intent of the 11-1 meeting for this item was to discuss the transition only and not to hire. If the new board wants to hire, they're perfectly welcome. They can do whatever they want to do. But it's not their time yet. And I think it's pretty clear from both watching the tape and reading the minutes that wasn't to be hired. And if I'm mistaken, that's fine. But I would love for you all to go on record saying discussion only. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Donna Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. Pulling rabbits out of hats with agendas that just pop up from nowhere. It doesn't seem like a really good way to start things off, with a new look toward the future. And with regard to having an agenda item to hire an interim administrator, that just puzzles me all over, because why would this county entertain paying someone extra using taxpayers' dollars to add on another salary when I think you have two assistant county administrators? One of them might have a conflict, but the other one I wouldn't think would, who could continue with the work that needed to be done. And as I understand it, the county administrator's contract doesn't end until January, and that gives you time to draw up advertisements that are comparable to the ones you did last, and not go through this rigmarole. And I'm not talking about easing your workload. I'm talking about easing a tax load. It doesn't seem to be pressing to hire an interim administrator when you have one still on the payroll till January 3rd, and you have two assistants who what I think would be capable of handling the job at their current salary.
Mr. Chairman, I think when we get to your agenda item, I wish I had come before this one. We'll resolve the matter.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Bach, to approve consent item number 3. Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Okay, item 7. Clint, would you mind giving us an update on Mount Beezer Road? This item, I think, accurately reflects the workshop we had and the head nods that the direction that the board indicated. But and I apologize that I didn't get to talk to you. I know there were some concerns about some actions on Mount Beezer Road. So
Okay. We plan on
working on Mount Beezer Road tomorrow. Last week, we finished up a project and had to transport our excavator. Originally, I hoped to transport it to this end of Wakulla Aaron Road for the realignment. We still got some right-of-way issues over there. So we did go to Mount Beezer Road Friday and do some preliminary work. The road was so narrow, we couldn't get our equipment in there, or the bucket truck that will be doing the work tomorrow. And so all we've done so far is grubbed out some undergrowth, and I assume this is going to pass in a few minutes, and tomorrow we'll take down some larger trees and move the road back 3 foot towards the county right-of-way like we discussed. So the activity last weekend was just, that piece of equipment weighs over 100,000 pounds, and you just don't, I didn't have anywhere to take it, and when I get through there, I'm going to another job, and it's going to be tied up for months. So,
okay, so the widening that occurred in other places than the site's property was just so you could get the equipment in?
And what we did was just some small growth stuff. Remember, I'm the one that lobbied this commission about doing anything extra up there other than what was necessary, and so we're very sensitive about that, and that's all we're going to do. And I've talked to three of the people that were involved in that area, and they're, for once, on both sides of the fence, everybody seems happy of the people that live right there. We've talked to them, and so we've had to relocate, take down Mr. Sykes' fence, and we'll get that put back up for them. And so last week, other than the email that I think you got late last week or over the weekend, it's the only concerns I had that I wasn't able to address. And I did have a phone call, and once they explained what we was doing to the family, they were happy with it.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update. I move to ratify the board discussion during the October 7th workshop and to approve staff proceeding with widening the road 3 feet in front of the site's property.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Brock. Okay. Call for the... There are no cards on this, right? Okay. Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Item 9 and 10, I pulled just because I had some questions. So, Mr. Nielsen. And I apologize that I didn't get to talk to you in advance. Item 9 is pertaining to the utility allowance schedule. And I was just really surprised to see how high Progress Energy has jumped up. And
we just received the data from them. I guess we don't justify anything. We just received Progress Energy give us the data, and we receive from them. But the utility allowance benefits the actual tenant. So if the utility allowance utility goes up higher, then the tenant receives more money.
Right. I had Progress Energy, and I wasn't aware of anything that would lead to a big increase. And these are some pretty big increases that weren't paralleled by increases on other utility companies. And I just wondered if you had any insights on the matter.
We just received it from the website, and the data that they give us, we put it in this chart.
Okay.
So I know my light bill is pretty high.
Okay. Well, again, I'm sorry I didn't get to ask you before the meeting. I move to approve the resolution to establish the 2010 utility allowance schedule for the Wakulla County Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Rental Assistance Program. Yeah, okay.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Stewart. Any citizens to speak on this issue? None. Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
And that ooh is not part of the motion. I thought I was reading the wrong motion. Okay, item 10 is about the payment standards. And in reading through it, I just want to make sure I understood this correctly. We currently have 175 families on the housing waiting list?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And we have a total of 250 vouchers that we can give out?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. But we're only giving out 132?
Because that's all we can afford to give out, and that's why we set the fair market rent at 90%. We pay 90% of a particular rent, and we try to keep it at 90% because then it allows us to put more people on the program. If we could pay 90%, 100%, or 110%. And so if we pay 110%, of course, we're going to have less people on the program. So if that's why we suggest to keep it at 90%, so that it allows us to add more people to the program. But
okay, well, how can we have 250 vouchers if we only can afford to have 132?
HUD only funds enough money, gives us enough money to fund 132. Now, if we could reduce the amount of money that we paid less than 90%, then we can add more people to the list, but you can only pay 90%, 100%, or 110%.
Okay, this is just very disturbing that we have 132 people that we're helping and 175 on the waiting list.
Yes, ma'am. That's normal, though.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure I understood it.
I guess I've long been bothered by, if you look at, I'm not sure what page it is, but it's half a dozen pages back. It says 1 of 8. It's this
Attachment 2, 1 of 8.
Anyway, if you look at that, if I understand it right, and talking to some renters out here, and I know this, I'm not sure why we do it other than that must be the HUD standard, is that we pay for the renter of let's say a 3-bedroom mobile home, $1,026 a month.
We pay, that's the 100% rate.
Okay.
We pay 90%.
Okay, we're actually going to pay 90% of that.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath mobile home, and I can tell you it's about half that. It puzzles me that the government gives that money away like that for the same standard house. It don't make sense. And we could help so many more people if it just bothers me that we do that.
We probably could negotiate a better deal if we did it ourselves, but HUD set these standards, and they do it because they don't want anybody to go any higher or any lower than that. And so they don't want anybody going lower so that landlord can benefit. They don't want you to go any higher because it costs the program if they go above these limits.
I know for a fact that there's some of these places that are receiving close to $1,000 that's substandard, is what I'm saying. And it just don't seem right. I know y'all go and inspect them and they have to pass the standard, but I'm not upset with you guys. I'm upset when you got to walk it back to the federal government why they do what they do, and it's just a waste of tax money. But
and 90% is the lowest we can go.
90% is the lowest we can go.
Okay. Alfred, what is the MSA that we're in? Is it Wakulla, Leon? I assume in it probably pulling those rental prices up.
They actually do it for Wakulla County only.
It's just
Wakulla County only, and they consider it, but they probably consider the surrounding areas because we do, as you suggested, we do Leon County and Wakulla County and Jefferson County are all included in the same group. So it's nothing we can do about these prices. The only thing we can do is the 90%, and that's as low as we could go to allow more people to be on the program is 90%. The only other thing we can continue to do is request more money from HUD.
the unfortunate part, there's unscrupulous people out there who drive the price up knowing they're going to get 90%, and they end up getting twice what it's worth in the end. And there's no way to control that. That's what I'm saying, and it's we can't change it. It's not at our level of government to do, but it's just frustrating. Anyway.
Well, thank you for the information and the discussion. Go ahead. Sorry.
So you're saying to the board that if there's a rental out there for 3-bedroom for $700.
Yeah.
And they qualify to be on the HUD list. But HUD will insist
No. If it has to be advertised.
They know the rate.
So whatever that rent is advertised for is what we pay. It has to be advertised for maybe 3 months. We actually put that's called rent reasonableness. We take that rent and we put it into our records. And we only pay, if they say $650 for a 3-bedroom, we pay $650. Most of these are based on, you do have some people that do raise their prices, but the tenant is allowed to go and choose their own place. And so they can choose a place because we're only going to pay up to 30%. We're not going to pay, the 30% of the income is what we're going to require of them. So anything above that, they're going to pay themselves.
There are a lot of renters out there who know when a HUD renter's coming, they change the sign around, and now instead of being $700, now it's $1,000. There are folks out there, and it's unfortunate that they can get away with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Art.
I move to approve the resolution to establish the 2010 payment standards for the Wakulla County Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Rental Assistance Program.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Stewart. No citizens to speak on this issue. Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We are going to 14.
The parade.
Well, it might be at the time for citizens to be heard. I've lost track without the clock.
We got a couple minutes.
Right, but we already passed that, I think it was...
Did we?
Yeah, we've already passed the parade issue. I mean, that's...
You're right.
Already
You're right. It was in the consent. We didn't vote it.
Yeah, okay.
I apologize.
That's okay. So let's enter the citizens to be heard section of the meeting. All those who wish to speak during this section, which is an open section, allows you to speak on any topic. But you must fill out a speaker card. And you're allowed 3 minutes. Ms. Ruth Francis, Dr. Ruth Francis.
Good afternoon. Ruth Francis, Spring Creek Highway. On behalf of the Wakulla County Christian Coalition, I stand to thank you, Dr. Kessler, and you, Commissioner Green, for a job well done. Wakulla County is a much, much better place because you all were here. And we do thank you for your service, for serving all the Wakulla County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. U. Taylor.
Taylor, Martin Luther King Road. That's too much to follow. Very good. Commissioners Green and Kessler, all I can say is I thank you for your service. I can, as I think and remember the past few years, I can think of a number of things, but and some of them pretty historic. But really, all I can think of now is one quote, and it is, "Well done, my good and faithful servants." So, thank you.
Mr. Larry Roberts.
Larry Roberts, South Chappie. After Ms. Arts, it's difficult to find anything new to say good about you guys. George, it's been a pleasure. I've had a lot of conversations with you in your office. We didn't always agree, but we always left friends. And when you leave this office, I hope you consider me your friend also. some of the things that this board has done that Ms. Arts didn't go into, it is now a charter county, which I thought was a great accomplishment for this group. I hope it continues to be a charter county in the future. Dr. Kessler, you in particular on this one, from the first time you announced to run for this office until now, and well into the future, I'm sure. Your big issue, two of your big issues, was transparency in government and fiscal conservatism. You have been steadfast in your support of that. You weren't always successful, but I thank you for trying. Another item, a couple other items that this board has accomplished, the wetlands ordinance. I thought that was a tremendous benefit to the county. Also, during your tenure, we got a new county attorney, which is by far greater, better than what we had, and I thank you for that also. And I thank you all for what you've done.
Ms. Pam Portwood.
First, I wanted to speak on behalf of the Tourist Development Council as the director and say to Commissioner Green, thank you so much for your service on our Tourist Development Council. We really appreciated your input and participation, so I wanted to thank you for that and tell you job well done. And I've also been asked on behalf of the Panacea Blue Crab Festival Committee and the Tourist Development Council to thank the current board for your support in getting the Welcome Center repairs and renovations done and back open. That center, just in the last couple of weeks since it's reopened, has had lots of visitors. There have been several days they've had more than 20 visitors in the visitor center, which for us is great numbers. And so a lot of that has to do with your willingness to put the money up that we needed to get the center up and running. So thank you very much.
Mr. Vic Lambu.
Vic Lambu, 272 Pine Lane. I would, on my behalf and on my wife's behalf, I would like to thank the two commissioners that won't be with us on the board for their service in making Wakulla a much better place to live. I can't be as eloquent as Commissioner Arts and Commissioner Stewart, but they have done a lot for this county. I have one request of both of them, that they keep active in Wakulla County activities and continue to help make it a better place to live. And I know that they will do that. I also wish the new commissioners coming in and the old commissioners that will remain on the board their best. And I'd like them to remember the 4 pillars that they need to keep in mind to make Wakulla County a better place to live and a good place to be. 1, we need sustainable development. We need environmental protection. We need cultural preservation. And 4th, the most important, we need good, honest governance. Thank you.
Mr. Bob Danzy.
Hi, my name is Bob Danzy. I live here in Crawfordville. And I too would like to thank you. Thank you both for your service, Commissioner Kessler, Commissioner Green. I didn't always get your vote, but you always seem to listen. And I just appreciate you in the difference of opinion on a lot of things. It's still that community service is tough. And I think you've made the best decisions in your opinion that you could make, and I respect you for that. So thank you for your service.
Miss Jenny Brock.
Jenny Bullock, Old Magnolia Road, too would like to thank you, Commissioner Green and Dr. Kessler, for your service. And I won't even try to top what Commissioner Arts has said about you two. I agree with all of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Sue Damon?
Thank you, Sue Damon, Shell Point. Thank you, Commissioner Green, for everything that you did for us. I have to say, your door was always open. You were always available. You answered the emails, and it was wonderful working with you. And to Commissioner Kessler, thank you for your many, many years and countless hours of dedicated service, putting service above self, helping all who asked, and not for the bragging rights or the political gain, but because that's who you are. And that's why you ran for 3 terms. You're a man of conscience, integrity, and conviction, and in a world and in a county where we have so few role models. It's just been wonderful having you here on our board. I believe this world would be a much better place if it had more people like you and your wife, Ann, who have given up so much and so selflessly for all of us. Thank you for fighting for fair, open, accountable government. It was an uphill and steep battle all the way. I hope you feel that the rewards outweighed the unconscionable abuse, maliciousness, slander, libel, personal losses, thievery, cruelty, and devious tactics that were meant to cause you harm and pain over the last 8 years. May those who perpetrated all of that receive their just reward. It is obvious that some people do not recognize the profound difference that you have made in this county. Now that the residents, whose only agenda is to keep Wakulla special, no longer have your voice on the county commission, I can only hope that the citizens of this county will pay attention and fight to keep the county the beautiful place that it is today and the one that you have worked so hard to protect. I hope that the respect, admiration, and support of many of Wakulla's finest citizens will serve as sufficient reward. You serve as a shining example of what real citizenship means, and thank you for representing us.
Thank you. Ms. Dana Peck?
Well, I come to praise you, not to bury you. But first, a word about watchdogs. I heard all the chatter about you all being watchdogs, and I'm going to state the obvious here. Nobody likes a watchdog. The goal of the people who don't like watchdogs is to muzzle them or get rid of them somehow. But nothing makes a watchdog salivate more than something to bark and yip and snap about. So I hope you never abandon your watchdog ways. I did want to begin tonight by saying once upon a time, about a century and 1 year ago, a group of politicians turned elected officials turned real leaders got together and passed in Florida sunshine laws. And they passed those laws so that there would be honesty and integrity in the minds of the people who were governed, and standards for the minds of those who were governing to attain. And I would like to say that from my observation, Commissioner Kessler and Commissioner Green, you met those standards. You are models of honesty and integrity. And you met them in your commitment to do your job, not for people who were your friends, and not for personal gain, to use your position in that manner, or not to do business deals, but to do good things for all the people in this county. And I'm hoping that honesty and integrity will prevail after you leave, because when politicians turned officials, turned leaders, abandon honesty and integrity, they don't just hurt themselves, but they hurt and taint and mark the people they govern. So I thank you very much for your leadership.
Mr. David Damon.
Commissioner Green, Commissioner Kessler, thank you both so much. You've given so much to this county. From so many of us in the scouting community, I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Kessler for his support of scouting and its ideals. Over the years, Commissioner Kessler has consistently led by example, and the example that he has set has been that of a man with integrity. His leadership and commitment to a higher standard has set him apart as a role model for others, including those of us in scouting. Commissioner Kessler has always been there when those in scouting needed his help, whether it was planting trees year after year with the scouts, or being there to be interviewed by a scout working on his citizenship and the community merit badge. No matter how full his plate was, he took time to work with the scouts as if they were the singularly most important person on his busy calendar. As a politician, he led by example and always taking the high road and standing up for the people and what he thought was right. He never stooped to half-truths and lies, as we so often see in politics today. His example as a politician of integrity is becoming rarer and rarer in this day of winning at any price. His integrity is not for sale. Many scouts have a close bond with the state park system, and Wakulla Springs has always been a place that my scouts have chosen to do special projects, whether helping to build the bridge over the Sallywood Springs or doing trail maintenance. We currently have one of our scouts doing his Eagle project in Wakulla Springs. As an environmentalist, Commissioner Kessler fought to protect our springs and wetlands. When Wakulla Springs was under assault by the water bottling industry, Commissioner Kessler stood firm. He understood that the springs must be protected for future generations and not exploited by a handful of businessmen from our generation. This attitude of selling our natural resources to the highest bidder or campaign contributor is inexcusable. The very idea of selling our water reminds me of some third world country stripping its hillsides of trees to profit a few, and then watching its people try to survive the mudslides as a result. Are we as a county that desperate? Commissioner Kessler understood that no one has the right to sell our water. It belongs to all of us, just as Wakulla Springs belongs to all the people and should be protected at all cost. It should not be for sale to anyone. He understood that the elected officials should be the first line of defense instead of being part of the very ones threatening our natural resources. Commissioner Kessler could clearly see the long-term importance of protecting Wakulla Springs from commercial interests. For that, our scouts thank you. When the dozen or so very old live oak trees at Shell Point Resort Development at Shell Point were marked for demolition, I negotiated a deal with the owner, George Heaton, in order to save them. From those negotiations, it became clear that a tree ordinance was needed for Wakulla County. I approached the commissioner for my district, Howard Kessler, and was given total support for the idea. I might add that Commissioner Lynn Arntz, one of our current commissioners, was also on that committee that drew up the first tree ordinance for our county. It took a year of meetings to put the ordinance together. When there was outside pressure to water it down, Commissioner Kessler stood firm in his support. Prior to the tree ordinance, there was little or no incentive for developers to save these old trees. Now there is. As we turn a new chapter in Wakulla County, I hope that those of you that have chosen the path of corporate profits over environmental protections, those of the few driven by the promises to campaign contributing special interest groups, will think long and hard. Before you set to work whittling down or eliminating wetland and tree protection and undoing 8 years of progress, do some soul searching and preserve what we in scouting hold so dear. Over and over again, Howard Kessler stood for what was right. He stood up for the people and he stood up for the environment. Whether you always agreed with Dr. Kessler or not, he led by example and he led with integrity. He is a role model that scouts have always been proud to look up to and to truly call a friend to scouting. For all of what you did for us and what you stood for, we thank you, Commissioner Kessler.
Thank you. It was hard to stop you.
No worries.
How feels the board? It's 6:40. 6 or something like that. You want to take a quick 10-minute break, or you want to just keep on going?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. We're into general business.
Administrator has stepped out for a moment, so first item on general business is item number 14, update on the courthouse renovation project, and request for approval for an increase to the GMP for that project. The clerk's here as well as court administration to walk you through the item. So.
We had a couple of additional clarifying comments made on the item circled on the second and third page of this little part that is actually incorporated into what we're asking you to vote on and approve tonight. I'll make sure that you get these and Stedman gets these. It was just clarified by adding a little bit more detail what we wanted to have the change order incorporate. I thought that my speech would be really long tonight, thanking Commissioners Green and Kessler, but doggone it, everybody just kept taking all my points tonight. So I do want to thank you.
You can have another 3 minutes.
I do want to thank both of you. The system won't work without people who are willing to set aside their own, time and interest and hobbies and you name it, and serve people. Thank you for doing that all these years. Tonight I'm here with Grant Sladen, the court administrator for the 2nd Judicial Circuit, and I am wearing a tie because we're here to ask for more money. But the good news is the money that we're asking for is really just to increase the amount that we planned on borrowing from the previously approved loans that you approved and the bank approved. So this money is coming out of the $30 court surcharge. It's not taken away from another project here in the county, so I want you to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And just wanted to kind of reiterate that what we're asking for here tonight is to hopefully finish up this project, deal with some unforeseen and unknown things that came up. I want you to know that it's been reviewed by the architects whose job it is to help us with this whole construction process. It's been reviewed by the courts, and I'll let Grant speak to that, and then it's been reviewed and approved and recommended by me as your lead on this project. Let me invite Grant over here to say a word or two at this point.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Thank you for letting us be here tonight to speak about this project. Unfortunately, there's some unidentified costs when they did the destructive demolition and did some other research into the building. There turned out to be a lot of unanticipated costs to finish the job completely and to abate all of the asbestos and the lead tile and lead paint that were in the building. And so those things now have all been removed, but to get to some of the things, it caused a lot more damage than they thought, some more extensive work. On top of that, there were some additional things that came to light once the building had been pulled apart, if you will. There were issues with the sprinkler systems. Originally, we were looking at doing low-cost patches and sort of rigging other units to work together, and the building inspector and others look at that and now don't think that's an optimum solution or even a recommended solution. And so various things like that have increased the cost. There's some unforeseen ADA expenses now, and those have all worked together to increase some of the costs. The good news is, I think, that the money or the authority to borrow money had already been approved by the board. There is additional monies available, and it does not come from general revenues. It comes from a court facility fee that can only be used on court facility projects. So it won't impact the county in any way with other projects or other spending priorities that they might have. And so we're coming to you tonight to look at those additional costs, getting those approved so we can continue with the project. Taking the long view, it's not a large cost for a building that we're hoping
will last 40 or 50 more years. This is already a 62-year-old building, and it's not a lot of money to get this building into a posture where the infrastructure is there for it to last a long time. One last point I wanted to make about the building, too, is one of my concerns, and I've reiterated this throughout the process to people we've spoken to, and including even the press, but one of my concerns, too, is the project itself. This is not a gold-plated project. I think a taxpayer that comes in and looks at this building once the project is done is going to say, wait a minute, you spent $2 million on this building. It looks the same. It doesn't have any new facade. It still has piping inside. It still has electrical conduit that's visible. It has the same awning in front of it. The courtroom looks the same. What did y'all do with that money? And it's things you can't see that we did with it. It has a new fire system that meets code, a fire system that makes the building safer. It's got new electrics to make the building safer. It's got new energy conservation, air conditioning, and HVAC system. It's got clean ducts that won't get mold or have mold issues perhaps in the future. It's got the lead tiles removed. It's got new bathrooms that are ADA compliant put in. It's got new water that's drinkable by the employees and the public that comes use there. It's got working bathrooms. You know, the bathrooms on the first floor were unusable prior to this project starting. So a lot of things have been done, but it's not anything that's going to be showy or flashy with the building. It is a workman-like building, and that's where it'll be once this project's done. So I do one final thing. I would just want to assure you all there's no African mahogany, there's no etched glass, there's no marble in this building. This is a workman-like building. I mean, even in the courtrooms, you're using the same chairs and benches and stuff that were in there for the public to sit in. So I just wanted to make that clear up front. Thank you for your time. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
I would be glad to entertain any questions that you may have. I don't want to stand here and go on and on talking about it. If you have some specific questions, we'll discuss those.
What have questions?
I'll move to approve amending the scope to include all the additional items on attachment number 1, increase the guaranteed maximum price GMP by $374,944.83, and authorize the chairman to execute the change order to modify the GMP.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Brock, second by Commissioner Stewart.
Without, if I may, Mr. Chairman, without a long explanation, can just to help the public understand, I think I do, but I want to just ask a rhetorical question and tell us why we found so much additional asbestos that we couldn't have seen before.
I think that we knew about some of the floor tile that had asbestos in it, probably going back to the 1991 work where they added the third floor onto the courthouse. During this entire time, the approach had been to just cover that up. What we didn't know until we had professional people look at this was that there were other sources of asbestos that included some caulking around the glass block windows. Thankfully, it wasn't between all the glass blocks, because at one point we were a little concerned about that, but it was just around the outside of those windows, and was not known. And then we had some mastic adhesive type stuff that was under some of the flooring that had some asbestos in it, and until we had taken the flooring up, we didn't really know that it had kind of like another level. And then we also found that in certain areas where there were walls added or walls spurred out from the original 1948 construction, that was done right on top of some of the tile that we didn't know that was under there. And in some of those areas, they had already had the tile removed. So we originally thought, well, this room is clean, and then when we got in there and peeked up under there, realized that in order to get it all out, we needed to take those walls out and remove that. There's about $105,000 of the total, which rounds to $375,000, that is related to abatement. There's about $105,000 that is related to code requirements, and then there's $165,000 that is in kind of an other category, which includes things like upgrading the fire alarm system instead of having all new wiring, but a lot of the devices being older and existing, and at the end of their useful life, the fire marshal didn't require, but strongly recommended that we upgrade all the devices so that we don't have a part new, part old system that's going to start tripping and getting false alarms and that type of thing. Having responded down through the years to many false alarms back when we had our old system, I'm all in favor of not having false alarms. Anyway, that's kind of a summary of the three areas that compose this, and so hopefully that gives you an idea. I'll give you another example. And a project kind of can migrate a little bit, and I think that's recognized, and I'm certainly not a building expert, but it's recognized in that there's leeway given to the local officials to determine, at what point a project has been so comprehensive that you may need to add things that you didn't plan on adding before the project became that comprehensive. And I think I may be using the incorrect terminology, but I think that we kind of went from a level 2 to a level 3 project in this as it became a little bit bigger project. Then our local officials asked us to upgrade things like all the hardware for the doors, make that ADA accessible. It's something that we knew could be out there, but we didn't try to plan on that because we were trying to minimize the cost up front. So we run into things like that are kind of to some degree a moving target. We hope there's not very many of those left, obviously, but if you got any more questions, Mr. Ross?
Yes. I think it's wonderful that you're saving some of the older chairs and furniture that has historic value. This is also an opportunity, though, I think, to try and reduce our energy expenditures. And I'd like a little bit of an update from you about what, if anything, is being done in that regard. For example, one on the third page, it says reinstall existing light fixtures. And I don't know how efficient the existing light fixtures are, but if they're going to be in place for another 20 years, we could spend a lot of money paying for electricity to operate those. And if it may be worth a little bit more money now to save money over the lifetime with more efficient lighting fixtures. And I just wonder if that's something y'all are looking into or have considered.
It is, and it's my understanding that these fixtures already have the adapters in them for the more efficient bulbs. The fluorescent, smaller, more energy-efficient bulbs. These fixtures already have those adapters in them. We adapted a few along about a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years ago. We started kind of doing a few here and there as we had a little bit of money left in the maintenance budget. So all of these are up to that standard of using the more efficient bulb. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, those rooms were some rooms that originally I said, why don't we leave a few of the ceilings up high? And it's probably not the only thing that I failed to see the big picture on in this project, because it turns out that the sprinkler system looks really ugly when you don't have a drop ceiling down to hide all the piping from that. So what started out as a effort to try to preserve some of the original ceiling tile and the original high ceilings and all in parts of the courthouse, we ended up including that item in there because we felt like it's probably not it's so unattractive and that we probably needed to address that. So that's what that actually had to do with. But those fixtures are already at that new efficiency level with the adapter.
I know when Peter Brown was here before, I've given them some information about more efficient air conditioning units. Do you know what kind of HVAC system are you putting in? Is it?
I'm happy to say that I don't know the specifics on that. We do have some people here that if they may be able to answer that type of question. We got some folks from the architect firm and from Peter Brown here I do know this, it is projected to have a return on the investment over a DX system, which is the kind of system that we have right now. If we put a new DX system in, versus putting this system in, it cost a couple $100,000 more, but the payback in energy savings was like 7.7 years or something like that. So it was a very short payback period for putting in the chiller system that is more efficient. So if this is a 40-year system, which we should expect that it could last that long with proper maintenance, then for the rest of the 32 and a quarter years, we should be saving money each year on our energy bill from that. If you guys have anything you want to add that has to do with specs or models, what
did you consider that I think it was turbo core, that double compressor system?
Good afternoon, Greg Kelly, Clemens Rutherford Associates. Yes, ma'am, we did. We ran cost efficiency analysis on the different systems that were recommended, and with the budget we're working with and the payback and everything, this proved to be the most cost-efficient system for this project, and it is an air-cooled chiller system.
Okay. Does it really need to be expedited? Do we need to pay $5,000 or $4,000 to get it here quickly?
What that was originally, when we started working on the project, it was broken into 7 or 8 phases, and we were given the contractor, Peter Brown, the first part of the first floor for one phase, part of the second floor for the second phase, third floor. Well, then it turned out the community center became available, and we were able to move everybody out to the community center, so the whole courthouse became available at one time. They had priced it to get parts and pieces, VAVs and different components over a long period of time. We got everything available at once, so we needed all the components at once. So we had to pay a little bit extra up front to get it all when the courthouse became available.
Okay. Those were all my questions. Thank you.
If it makes you feel any better, that was my number one complaint about this whole project, was that $4,000.
Well, I hate to see things expedited and then just sit there, or that they had to be expedited because somebody didn't plan well, but
part of the evolution, if you will, of this project is that in addition to it changing from a level 2 to a level 3 in architectural terms, it went from an occupied phase by phase process to an unoccupied process, and that's really about the only negative, I think, to that change. But anyway, if anybody else has any other questions.
Any additional questions from the board? You ready? For me?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's just do just an overview of where we started from. Initially, this was a project that we knew was going to be expensive, considering the money that the county had on hand. And the driving factors for going ahead and doing this was really for the health and safety of the occupants of the building. That at least was what motivated my vote. And then we did have a situation where the community center became available, and we were able to move that out. And that was supposed to provide us with a cost savings because everything could move along quicker. So where we stand, let's say just that, taking us from the initial amount of money that was supposed to be spent to when the community center became available, and we had a plan that was going to result in a speedier process.
I'm probably going to need to get some of these guys to see if they could come up and help me with that. I know that when we put the agenda item together, we were almost halfway through with the project, and now I think we're a little over halfway through with it.
I may have misphrased my question. I'm really talking about money.
Okay.
So we start off with a project that's supposed to cost how much?
The original GMP was $2.243 million. There's there's about $199,000 of minuses off of that, but that is not all savings on the project. Some of that has to do with, a lot of that has to do with the benefit that the county receives by not having to pay sales tax if we buy the material directly versus having Peter Brown buy it. It may be a little confusing if you look at this, because the change order is something like $2.4 million, and we're really asking you for $2.6 because the materials part we were going to pay anyway. So maybe I'm not sure. Maybe that kind of answers the question there. But the $375,000, we might say, that we're asking for has some netting in it. But I'm not the best person to ask in terms of if this subcontractor knocked 10% off of his bid on doing this extra change order work because of the expedited part of this. I'm probably not the best person to answer that question, so we may have to get one of the other guys to come back up here.
The amount to be borrowed was originally $1.9 million, I think, when we came in here the first time looking at the project. I think the initial estimates were it was going to be about $2.25 million, and so it actually had come in a little bit under where it was before. When they looked at the phasing and working at doing the renovations in an occupied building, especially a building where you're trying to hold public hearings, and discussing it with subcontractors and the court and the clerk, we were looking at having to do some of the work at night. In fact, a significant amount of the work either off hours or on weekends, which were going to raise costs. So at that point, we were looking at the possibility that there may be increased costs because, for several reasons. One, you're paying people to do labor at non-standard hours, and then the other thing is you're doing maybe more mobilizations because you're phasing and moving around the building, and so I think those were costs that were avoided because we didn't have to go down that road. The decision was made for the benefit of public safety, especially when they found out there were 4 different types of asbestos in the building, and then later found lead, just to vacate the building entirely. And I think then the decision of the board was to abate the building entirely. Let's clean this building up, make it safe for the future, and we can use it for another 40, 50 years, give the building more than a 100-year lifespan, based on the fact that it's 62 years old now. So I think, at the time, the estimates were higher. Then when the bid actually came in, it was lower. But then when you took into account some of the things you were going to have to do, it was going to be expensive. And Peter Brown went to bat on us on those kinds of things. We were looking at having more mobilizations or having contractors work at night. They even called in the contractors and said, hey, you got to work with us. We can't raise the cost significantly. We have to make this work. There was a lot of discussion about, maybe even arm twisting to try to make sure that we kept the costs, a cap on the costs as we went. But then as you get in and start doing destructive demolition, you find more asbestos. They found it under walls. They actually laid walls on top of asbestos, and that's something that's not a normal practice. There was, in the courtroom, for example, the big platform that was in the front of the courtroom that the bench and the witness and all those things are on, that had asbestos under that when you pulled all that stuff out. In fact, they had to destroy the platform to get to the asbestos, and if you've seen it, it's like grouted out, and so they have to rebuild that area. So there were certain things that worked, I think, to drive up the cost as the project went on, even though we saved ultimately, I think, money. It was cost avoidance by moving to the community center, but more importantly, I think we ensured public safety by moving to the community center. I don't know if that answers your question, or...
We're getting closer.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I'm trying to here.
Right. So we start off with a figure.
Yes, sir.
And you had mentioned that the loan was $1.9 million.
Yes, sir. I think it was authorized up to 2.5, because I think that was the high end of, I guess, estimates. I'm not sure the financial part how that worked, but I think that was
there were also other funds besides the loan that were going to be used.
Yes, sir. So there was some small county courthouse money and also some court facility money in a balance.
Right. And so what I'm asking for is, when we start off, our estimate of the cost is at that $2.4 million. Is that what we start off with, saying it's probably going to cost us $2.4 million?
I think roughly that's correct. I've got minutes here. Maybe I can look back and see.
Okay, and where are we now if the board approves this?
The whole project?
Yes.
I think with the materials is about 2.6, maybe, so it's really about 200,000 more than maybe where we were before, I think. Okay. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think what you probably asking for is something that I don't know we can, compile here at the microphone. The GMP is what, after we had the architects design the plans and so forth, the GMP is what we expected the materials and labor to not exceed based on that scope of work. What we're asking you to do is to move that GMP up approximately $375,000.
That brings it to what?
That's 2.618. $2,618,268.83. And
Mr. Chairman, it's on page 5.
Yep. Okay. And that's where we are now.
That's what we are asking you to approve on this. So
if we approve this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just stop that for a second and go to, you had made a mention that the loan is tagged to the $30 court fee. And so that doesn't affect the our general fund. But if you've exhausted maybe your ability to loan on that amount of money or not, if there's an additional problem, not necessarily in this construction, but in the future, 3 years out, and something happens and we have to, and there's not the ability for you to borrow more on that line of credit, then the county is going to have to respond, and likely that will have to come out of maybe general fund or some other portion that isn't court related.
I think that would be correct, although we are anticipating that we'll have about $225,000 of loan capacity that we're not planning on drawing down because we kind of know what we won't exceed as it relates to the remainder of the project. So that's on page 5, about the middle of the page there. Now, we could make a decision, I guess, about whether we would want to hold more in the cash account for, let's say, this $30 and use loan proceeds and save that for a rainy day, unknown event. I'm not sure how many unknown issues would come up related to this facility, because we shouldn't be having to work on it for quite a few years as far as anything major. But we do have the ability to borrow all the way up to the maximum if we want to now, or spend the $30 cash balance down to near zero. If we don't borrow to the maximum, then depending on what the future holds, but the projections when we did this were that we could service $1 million on the $30 loan, and right now we're really only at $400,000. We have $600,000 left. We're asking you to approve us borrowing another $375,000 against that, but we still have that $225,000 capacity in that loan if we for some reason needed that.
And that's one other point, just to clarify too, that's based on current borrowing capacity. Is the revenue potentially increases in the future? It's at a low right now, I guess, because of the economy, but as the revenue potentially increases in the future, I'd imagine the borrowing capacity would likewise increase in the future. So that's the figure today. It could be a different figure, but you're right, sir. I think having only $225,000 in an emergency fund, that's not a lot of money for a big county courthouse, to have an emergency fund. I mean, you could have a major problem, and hopefully not. Hopefully we have completely redone all the infrastructure, so this building will have that 40 or 50 year life. Hopefully we won't, but it is an unforeseen, and it's a possibility. So it's not much of a reserve at this point, but I think it could grow.
I got it, and I thank you for that clarification.
I would add that the primary case type generator for the $30 is traffic cases, and they're down everywhere in the state between 25 and 30%, and we're right in that range too. So although I can't predict the future, and I guess that could go down even further depending on the economy and everything. It's not very unrealistic to expect that the economy rebounds and people start driving faster and more, and we reap the benefits.
You're not asking people to start speeding.
No, I wouldn't stand here on public television and do that.
Under the sheet, the third page, I think, it says other issues. There's abated clerk spaces, office rebuild where walls, ceiling, and floor were removed. This is an additional thing and this has to be done. This is not something that is elective.
Well,
$12,700.
What we're trying to do is recreate the space for myself and my assistant, so that we can have separate offices, which we kind of need. But what we put in these shaded areas on that third page were kind of the items that we strongly recommend that you include in this. But if there was some need for us not to borrow this additional $375,000 and finish this project out at its recommended level, then those shaded areas were kind of the things that we felt like were the, least urgent of all those. And by that I mean, I would like to have that privacy for us, but
understand that is this intended to work as a change order?
That's to be incorporated by reference. There's a line on the change order that makes reference to attachment 1, which this is the third of the 3 pages that are
there's the specificity, like these generalities here. Will that be in the change order? Will it be spelled out with more specificity than exists on these sheets?
I think these guys might be better to answer.
I'd like that answer. That would be good if someone could answer that.
We have made the spreadsheet you see is an honest effort by us to go ahead and do the best we can to kind of encapsulate the ideas behind each of these tasks without actually being overly specific. We would kind of intentionally try to kind of limit these things by placing values on these items. Now I expect that some of these items will come in under the budgeted amount we're looking for right here, but there's an awful lot of information we'd be making an effort to try to. I think the best way to say it is if I was to try to get very specific on all these items, you would end up with a 30-page document to accomplish that probably. Now, if we need to produce a document that gives you more specifics related to each of these tasks, we can certainly do that. I'm not sure if that's the best way to accomplish it. Maybe help us with that.
I can mention to you that, the guidance for this project, kind of the behind-the-scenes guidance, is a set of plans, that are, 2 foot by 3 foot, along with a book that's about 180 pages or something. I don't remember how thick it is exactly. That's what has all the specs, and I may be wrong, but I think just like that part wasn't something that you guys got down into the bowels of, this is the same thing. I think they'll amend those documents as needed to direct the work to be done, and yet this is kind of, if I understand this right, this is kind of like an executive summary, but this is not what the subcontractors work off of.
If I might add one thing to that, you have a construction manager on this project, which is uniquely different than if this were a hard bid job. For example, I can see what you're requesting as being very more imperative. For example, if we had a hard bid job, but we have a CM on this project, and he's working in an open book capacity. At any time, we can ask him for validation regarding any of these and where these monies are going. And Peter Brown can provide us with that information. That's the uniqueness of having a construction manager rather than just a contractor on the project.
So is it fair to say if the board does approve what's here tonight, that's still really something that's fluid? It just sets a cap on things.
Absolutely. yes. And it could be less, sir.
It hasn't been so far.
We hope at this point, though, we have taken into account, we've done all the demolition, we've seen everything, we've taken into account, and we've ordered all this stuff, I think, at this point. So we've gotten that far. And I think the other point is, these total, that $375,000 does include additional contingency. We put additional contingency in there just in case. So that's part of it too. So I hope this is the same that.
And then just to wrap it up, I hope this is wrapping it up. Furniture. Are we buying new furniture, new draperies, or is it all what existed there before?
No, there's nothing in the project budget for any furniture at all. I mean, all the furniture is being reused. There's a little bit, and I'm going to let Grant talk to you about some of the things that were damaged in the large courtroom. That is part of what we're asking you to help us deal with. But you know, we purposefully didn't put any new furniture, any new chairs, any new.
That's what I want to hear. We really don't have to go
no curtains or blinds or anything like that. And of course,
all my questions.
but those may be issues that, like I said, that I'm a little concerned about is those blinds have been there 20 years, and you know, people may come in and say, "Have y'all done something with the windows?"
The same chair.
But it's just a tough time in the economy to be spending anything we don't have to spend. Okay, agree.
Mr. Chairman, I do have just one question. I need to make sure that the agenda item and the actual change order that's being approved match up, because the amended GMP in the agenda item is at the 2.6, but the amount on the change order is 2.4. So I didn't.
Right, but if you notice, there's that $199,000 deduct.
Yeah. So, but the new GMP is going to be the 2.4, not or is it going to be?
Well, from Peter Brown's point of view, it's 2.4.
Yeah.
But from your point of view, it's really the 2.6, because if we'd have included all the materials in the contract with Peter Brown, we would have had to pay about $20,000 of sales tax. That was unnecessary, so that's why you usually use a construction management and a direct procurement. I might not be using the exact right word for avoiding the sales tax, but that's why there's a difference between the, and I'm glad you noticed that, because I was expecting that should raise a question, because it's like pretty big difference.
So for clarity, the 2.4 is what the contractor's receiving. There's an additional, you guys are using tax exempt. The county's tax.
It's my understanding that, when you total up all the checks that we make out to Peter Brown, they're going to be the 2.4 figure, but when you total up all the materials and labor, you're going to have the 2.6 figure, which is still important, because that's where you come up with the $77 and change that this project cost per square foot. And I might add that is to compare with the old DCA building that the Florida State University Law School got. The renovation budget for that's $265. That's not the fancy place over there on the truck route. That's just renovating a building that I dare say was probably in a lot better shape than our building, probably had no abatement, and so forth. $265 a square foot for our 77.
When I think of GMP, I think of what's going to the contractor side. I just wanted to get
the bottom line from me is I think you're getting a big bang for your buck when you compare it with what it costs to renovate courthouses in the area. And so that's why I feel good about recommending that.
Any further board discussion or questions? Thank you very much for your input. We're ready to call for the motion then?
Call for question.
You call the question. Do we have a
motion? Option 1.
Okay. So
made by Mr. Block and seconded by me.
Correct. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously. That was easy.
Okay, Commissioners, next item under general business, probably be a little quicker. As we noted at the beginning, the title under the agenda outline has been amended somewhat, and it now reads Report on Protest Regarding RFP 2010-05 and the county administrator's recommendation to reject all bids and rebid the project new. Very brief background. Back in 2009, October of 2009, we entered into a loan agreement with DEP for the construction of the sanitary force main project that I know has been the focus of your attention recently. We advertised the project for bids at September 16th. 18 bids were received on October the 18th, 2010. Staff in Utah Utilities, who's been point on the project, evaluated the 18 bids, identified the apparent low bidder, and posted our notice of intent to award the bid to Kurtz Construction. Following that posting, the second place low bidder filed a formal protest to the bid results. And I'm just going to boil this down into simple terms. I and the county attorney feel confident that we would prevail to continue and proceed with the low bidder, but I have every confidence that that will be a long and costly process, and one that is easy to avoid. And that is why I make my recommendation to exercise your right to reject the bids and to reissue them, and hopefully secure a cleaner process that can be free of any challenge. A further administrator shall be bringing this back at the second meeting in January. And just being very blunt here, if we proceed, I have every confidence, again, that we would prevail, but it may go longer than that. So from a time cost, I think there's value in what's being recommended as well.
And what you mean by another administrator brings back in January is that if we rebid the process tonight, we will have a whole new set of, we end up picking and move forward with at the second meeting in January. Not that we would stop until January.
No.
Oh, no, your award.
Your award, yes.
Yeah, we'll award in the second meeting in January.
I move we reject all bids and approve to rebid the project. I want to add to that, in the minimum time allowed, I'd like to see us get it back sooner, but if that's the minimum, then that's it. But
You did have Kristen on. Got to put it on the streets for 30 days. You could probably get it in this Sunday's paper. It's got to be out there for 30 days, and then you hit the holiday. And you've only got one meeting, so... I mean, you may be able to get it back sooner, and obviously we'll try, but...
Can we shoot for the first meeting in January?
We can aim for it.
I mean, this has been a lengthy process. I mean,
The bidding hasn't been a lengthy process. I understand the project has, yeah.
This is one of those projects where we put our people to work, put money back in the community. That's where I'm coming from, and I want to, as long as we sit on the money, we're not putting it back in the community. I want to see people go to work and earn it, and we get a good project out of it. So
Absolutely.
that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Stewart and a second by Commissioner Brock to reject all bids and approve a rebid project. To rebid the project.
In the minimum time.
In the minimum time. I have some questions before we bring up. On the first page of the agenda item, there's basically the last sentence. Some of the protested bid irregularities were also present in North Florida asphalt bid. What were they?
One of the issues that was included in the formal protest by North Florida Asphalt, they called out the bid as being unbalanced, Kurtz Construction, which meant that some of the line items were either materially high or materially low on unit prices. The North Florida Asphalt also had a significant amount of line items that would be considered unbalanced as well.
And that was present in more than just the first two.
I believe a lot of the top 5 that your engineering firm looked at contained some material unbalancing. And the question there is, where do you draw the line? Is it okay to be unbalanced in 30 items but not 35, or vice versa? And that just was not spelled out.
What difference does it make if it's unbalanced, but they still come in with the lower price?
That's probably a question best thrown to Utah, and I believe they're here. Maybe you guys could address that. I asked the same thing.
Lane Lucas with Utah Utilities. It's just a kind of a standard practice to take all the bid items and compare them against the average. You take the low bid and the high bid and you throw them out and you average the rest of the bids, and then you just compare the line items to see if there's some kind of irregularity where there's the potential that the contractor may be taking advantage of something that he's seen. He bids real low on an item that he knows there's not going to be a lot of. He bids high on another item where there's going to be a lot, so that in essence the potential is there for a big change order for them in the end. It's just something, and what we did in evaluation of this one was just consulted with DOT. I mean, they take more bids than just about anybody in the state, and we basically use their format just to look at, at what point do they call an item unbalanced. And I want to say their percentage was 45, I believe is the number that we had from DOT, and we just looked at the items for the top or the low 5 bids where their items were 45% higher or lower than the average of the 16 middle bids. Does that?
So you're worrying about a change order?
Well, you're looking for something where the number is way out of norm on a particular line item in the bid.
So were these way out of norm?
I think, as the attorney said, on the top 5, there were a number. I don't remember the exact number on each one. There were 15 to 20, maybe some as low as 10 in those top 5, 10 items that were either high or low by 45%.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I understand where you're going, but that wasn't the issue that got this thrown out to start with. The issue was one was upset because they felt like they bid on more of the project than the other that got the low bid. And that's what caused all of it. So that's where we are. All this other is extra stuff, I guess, that you can't change because people are going to do that no matter what. But unfortunately, like Ben said, we're going to have to go through this lengthy legal process and pay attorneys and have this wrapped up in court for a year if we don't do what we're about to do. I hope we do.
Okay. So maybe I got to go backwards to go forward. What was we've discussed it, but I just want to understand it again. What was the incident that caused the supposed non-compliance of the first person according to the challenge?
Protest alleged was a few things. One was the failure to acknowledge 2 addenda. 2 was their mobilization costs were at 3.1% instead of 3%. And 3 was the unbalanced bid. And that's what their protest alleged.
Okay. We can have further discussion, but I guess that sets the ground with Commissioner Brock.
And it's my understanding, I think Commissioner Arts, you can go first.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Arts.
Okay. Did the invitation to bid include this requirement that it be balanced, that no line items could exceed 45% of the average or anything? No. Is that something we should, if we're going to be looking at bids in that light, is that something we should be including in our bid?
From my standpoint, I've already asked through Debbie that if we're going to look at that we at least give ourselves the latitude in the bid documents to do so.
Okay. Because some of what I want to look at is, what can we do to avoid the protests? And, maybe it's not possible, but for example, by approving a bid, if we had set a limit on the mobilization cost of 3% and a bid had 3.1%, should we have been strict and that they were not compliant? Or is it, should we have rejected all of these and gone out to bid before the protest was filed, or not accepted the first one or however many initial bids? And
I don't think so. I think this is a situation that arose. What generally the county has the authority, and you reserve yourself in the procurement documents here the ability to waive non-material defects in the bids, and that's what was done here, but that's also what caused the protest.
So, Commissioner, you have more questions?
No, go ahead.
So, would you consider, apparently you don't consider the challenge where it went to be a material?
We didn't consider the mobilization cap. That was not an issue that was brought up to us until the bid challenge came in. But the failure to acknowledge two addenda, based upon the information we received, that they were clarifications to the bid specs, they didn't change the bid specs, and they didn't result in any sort of competitive advantage to the low bidder. So that is considered at that point an immaterial that can be waived if you choose to.
So what I'm hearing is that we have these immaterial type of challenges, but because there's a challenge there, we're going to put this out to rebid. I guess what I'm asking for is, we have a low bidder. It doesn't seem like there's anything in this bid that was really wrong. Why aren't we giving it to that person if the board so desires? And if there were things that were really material and wrong, why don't we move on to the second bidder? And I'm losing the subtleties of here, I guess. So can you help me on that?
Well, I think the county administrator's recommendation, and I concur with it, is that it's going to be cheaper in terms of delay. There's going to be less delay and less potential legal costs if you reject all bids and go back out, just because of the specter of a bid protest hanging over you. That could be lengthy and it could be expensive.
Do you think there's any potential for, if we do this, if this becomes a thing where good contractors say, hey, you don't want to be bidding in Wakulla County, you're going to throw in your bid, and then you're going to eventually have them throw it out, and you're going to have to go through this whole process again?
I hope not. I mean, my tenure here, this is the first time this has ever been done, so I don't think it's a common occurrence in Wakulla County.
Well, I was going to echo, it's not only way cheaper, but it's this thing. I spoke at length with them today. It's the fastest way we can make this move forward. And the problem is one of the problems is if we throw out the lowest bid on the technicalities that have been brought up and go with the person who's raised their complaint, those people have the second bidder also has those same things, which makes the third one and the first one, starts a downward spiral. So this is the way we do it done the quickest.
One concern I have, and I don't know if there's any way to prevent this, but they're going to request new bids, and what if the company who filed the protest ends up the low bidder? Right, but it actually kind of bothers me that maybe a protest was raised on grounds that we don't think would hold up, and then could benefit from that. I don't know, that just concerns me. But
concern, but I mean, they very well could be the low bidder, and we could be asking you to award the contract to them come January. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think we just got to be very specific with this set of bids so that we avoid that happening, where we get a clean set of bids in, and if it happens to be the second one, then if they bid on it by the book, then it's a good bid. If it's not, we throw it out and go to the next one. It's that simple. I think we're making it too hard.
Okay, we have one person to speak on this, and this person is from Kurtz Construction, and I did ask that person when I was entering the room who they were, because there was a new face in the room, so I just wanted to disclose that. Shaska Denmark.
I'm Sasha Denmark, with Kurtz Construction. I was the estimator on this project. I put it together. You have to excuse me, I'm a little bit jittery because it's the first time I've had to go to a protest on one of my bids. Traditionally, we never protest bids. It's sort of a understood practice that true contractors don't try but I guess conditions economically have changed things. With regard to my bid, we did fail to acknowledge in writing addendum number 3 and 4. We received addendum number 3 and 4 the Friday prior to the bid. The bid opened on Monday. I spoke with Mike Chase, one of the engineers at Utah, on Friday concerning both of those addendums, because they addressed one, electrical issues, and two, pump issues with regard to your lift stations. Your lift stations accounted for about 25% of the bid. The bid went for about $2.4 million, so those were major components of it. I requested they extend the bid to Wednesday, which would allow my suppliers to procure a more firm quote and not have to do any guessing as far as, putting it together. I received prices for those pumps Saturday evening, put the bid together, forwarded it to our corporate office. She put it together. We're pretty much 3 hours down the road. We're in Live Oak. And for whatever reason, she did not ink in 3 and 4. Okay? We are well aware of what was in 3 and 4. It did not affect the bid in any means. Okay? Just for the record, that bid I put together very hard because we just completed a project in Suwannee County, almost identical. We put in 11 miles of 12-inch reuse main from the Suwannee County Correctional Facility into Live Oak. Utah was the engineer on that project as well. They're well aware of what we're capable of doing and the type of work we do. We're on a first-name basis. I bid this job very hard. I had about 7% markup in it, which is extremely cheap. We beat the number 2 competitor by $9,600 on a $2.4 million job. If you do the math, that's, only a couple tenths of a percent. We're extremely proud of what we put together, and we're extremely eager to come to work, and sort of disheartening when we realized that we made an error. I've read the letter from your officer, and I have to agree that what you're stating, for the most part, is the easiest way out. I live in a small county down south, Levy County, and I just don't like the fact that I have somebody out of Tallahassee coming here threatening me in my county, telling me how we do it in the big city, and then them trying to buckle us down, because it clearly states in your advertisements that you reserve the right to waive any and all formalities and to reject any and all bids. Okay? And now you got somebody come here saying that you've got shade meetings, that you're not abiding by the sunshine law. That just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. With regard to the unbalanced, we're talking about item 4.1 and 4.2 of the bid, correct? Okay, 4.2, insurance, okay? Insurance, I put in
$100 and something, okay? That was simply for a certificate of insurance for liability, personal property, and workman's comp. If you look at pay item number 001550, mobilization, in your spec packet, mobilization states to include bond. You look at my bid, I've got $23,005 in bond in that pay item. And that is why you're looking at it and saying it's unbalanced. It's not unbalanced. I've thoroughly reviewed what I put together, and I thoroughly reviewed the specifications that you provided to me, Mike. Lane. I've read your letters. I've read the letter that you provided to the Board of Commissioners, okay? And I understand we didn't add anything to the bid. We didn't qualify the bid, okay? We have not gained any advantage. If you take the 7% of that project and you string it out over a 10-month period, which is what this project's going to run, that's pretty much a shoestring budget to go on. You speak about the potential for not losing anything. That's yes and that's maybe no. Right now I'm hearing that material prices are going to increase. You've got $1.1 million invested simply in the pipe and fittings for that 10-12 mile stretch that you've got running. If you've got an increase in PVC, which is what they're predicting, you can look at a $150,000 increase in that over the next 2 weeks. I currently have a job doing for Department of Corrections, and I'm being forced to purchase all my force main, all my water, and all my gravity sewer, which is all PVC, because they're telling me that after next week there's going to be a 15 to 18% increase. So I'm having to purchase all that, stockpile it at our yard, and then try and get a stockpile material payment from them. But still, I'm going to have to move my materials twice in order to do that. So I don't know. And the last thing is, now everybody knows, of those 18 contractors, exactly, they can take the material price, look at what my lineal foot price is, and know exactly what I put in there for labor to lay that pipe. So the chances of me being able to put that bid together like that again, I don't foresee. And I don't really know if that's going to, if y'all are going to come out on the better end of this deal if you rebid it.
Why couldn't you put that bid together again?
Excuse me?
You just said you don't know if you could put that bid together again.
I don't know if I could put that bid together again and come out low.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm at an undue advantage. In North Florida, asphalt's going to be at an undue advantage because their numbers are out there as well. And
well, everybody's numbers are out there.
That's true. But us in North Florida asphalt, we were considerably lower than the third bidder. So it allows people to put the number where they want to do based on what everybody knows. Okay, thank you.
I have one question. If we were going to award this bid, just say, we couldn't actually award it because of the protest, that would have to be resolved first? I'm just, the issues about the prices of materials.
Will administratively resolve the protest, but the next course, if they are not satisfied and want to continue, is to go to court. So there's not really, if you decide tonight to reject all bids, the protest is over. If you decide tonight that you don't want to reject all bids, that you want to award to a low bidder, administratively the protest is over. That doesn't mean that this can't end up in court.
Right, I understand it doesn't mean it won't end up in court, but in fact, the process, the work could begin.
It could, but their attorneys could come in and say, we're going to ask for an injunction until this is done. There's irreparable harm that would result if they get this project and continue, so we want the project to halt.
Okay.
about? You're okay, okay. All right, so, so we have a motion and a second. And there's no further board discussion. We've heard the citizen to speak. Any further comments from the county attorney administration? Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioners, your last item under general business is item number 15. This simply requests your consideration and direction regarding two scheduling conflicts for board meetings in 2011, possibility of rescheduling due to conflicts with Comcast. Simply stated, you've got two board meetings where Comcast is advised that they cannot televise. So we can either go forth with them as scheduled and just know you don't have the television those 2 days, or we have provided you with two alternative dates that just sort of cram your meetings a little closer together in those months. We just simply seek your direction on how you'd like to proceed.
Yes, Commissioner Watts?
I was actually hoping that we could have a discussion with the new board about our regular meeting night. So, I mean...
When are the dates again? I mean, are they far enough along that we can do what Mrs. Artis?
Yes, sir. They're January 18th and February 22nd, so this could be dealt with at your December meeting. Table to...
Yes, please.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to table. There's a second. And no citizens to speak. Further board comment? Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're on to Commissioner agenda items at this point in time. Is that correct?
Would you mind if we took a short break? I'm sorry. I'd appreciate it.
Let's take a...
Real short.
Okay. We're taking a small break. 5 minutes. Okay, we'll resume the meeting. Then we're going to take, sort of settle down. At this point, we're on to agenda item 17. I am going to pass the gavel because I would like to make a motion. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Item 17, the subject is request board to vote to approve naming one of the present county assistant administrators as the interim county administrator. And I'm going to make an addition to the options as I get to them. The statement of issue, this agenda item requests the Board of County Commissioners to vote to approve the naming of one of the present county assistant administrators as the interim county administrator. At the November 1st, 2010 regularly scheduled Board of County Commission meeting, Mr. Ben Pingree announced his resignation as the county administrator effective January 3rd, 2010. He also announced his intention to provide for a smooth transition to an interim county administrator. Under the terms of his contract with the county, Administrator Pingree will receive his salary and benefits through to January 3rd, 2011 date. According to our county's organizational chart, we presently have 2 assistant administrators on board. Wakulla County is presently paying the salary and benefits of these 2 positions. The present economic status of our county and our county budget mandates that our county economize. To hire an interim county administrator before departure of Mr. Pingree and/or the determination that 2 assistant administrators are necessary would be most spendthrifty, not in our best interests. One of the most important functions of an assistant county administrator is to fill in for the county administrator should the county administrator be unavailable. If Mr. Pingree were to be absent from being able to work due to an accident, illness, family need, or other demand that would take him away from the office for a short or prolonged period of time, an assistant administrator would serve as interim county administrator. Either assistant administrator, Mr. Tim Barden, or assistant administrator, Ms. Lindsay Stevens, should have the foundation to fill in while the county decides that either it desires to search for a new administrator or leave the acting administrator in the job. Namely, either Mr. Barden or Ms. Lindsay Stevens would result not only in the most appropriate person filling the interim position, but would save the county needed money. So I would like to make the following motion, that is for the board to approve the naming of one of our two present county administrators, and I would specifically name Mr. Tim Barden, and to advertise immediately for a new county administrator.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve naming Mr. Tim Barden the interim county interim county administrator, and expeditiously advertise for a new full-time county administrator. Okay? Want to hear citizens to be heard first, or we want to discuss with the board? Okay. Hugh Taylor?
Hugh Taylor, Martin Luther King Road. My concern is that something efficient be done in terms of a interim situation, and I think Dr. Kessler's suggestion is a pretty good one. But again, I'm up here because of my concern about that email that was sent, which is kind of scary. Ms. Beck was up here about earlier mentioning the Sunshine Law in a public meeting, poorly noticed or poorly agended, does not serve the public. My first concern is having the situation discussed, although Dr. Kessler's suggestion is certainly a viable one, and I right now would agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Charles Hickman?
Charles Hickman, 528 Hickorywood Drive. First of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't add to everyone else's compliments to Mr. Kessler and Mr. Green for their passionate service to the county, and my sincere appreciation for that service. Basically, you folks that are going to be left on the board have to boil down to 4 questions: a new county administrator or an interim. Question number 1: why do we have 2 assistant county administrators if one of them cannot take over? Recently, Mr. Pengley had problems enough to put him in the hospital for a few days, and I'm sure during that time frame there wasn't a skip beat in the government. I'm sure one or both of those administrators alternated the function in some manner, shape, or form to perform. Third, why would the county spend monies to hire an interim administrator that would require double down on the salary? We could be using that money for a professional search firm to really see what's out there. And right now, it's hard for me to believe that there aren't people out there fully qualified with this economy as it is. And so as not to swell the employment ranks, the 4th question is, why would we not look for a person within the current county ranks? I don't know if anyone has bothered to go back through all of the qualifications of different individuals that work for the county. That would require going back and taking a look at their applications. And my last comment is that a while back, some of you remember that I did some research during the budgeting process of 10 different counties. And during that time frame, what surprised me was there were several counties that had worked as much as 6 months without a county administrator. They felt that it wasn't needed. Everything was referred to their county clerk on the approval of the BoCC. So, again, there are other counties that have gone through this same process. Now, one of the cities that I came across, and I can remember it because I used to live in that county, and I apologize for not remembering the other 2 or 3 that I had come across, but that was the city of Titusville. They actually utilized a citizens committee to operate their administrative functions. So these are just some things that you need to be thinking about in making your selection and choice.
Okay, thank you, sir. Larry Roberts.
Larry Roberts, Salt Chappie. Most everything's been said. Ms. Peck spoke earlier and expressed most of my concerns of this matter. But let me state, though, I don't see why we spend the money for our 2 county administrators. I think the 2 assistants we have can take care of the business of the county. If not individually, then the 2 of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ralph Thomas.
Good evening. Ralph Thomas, 637 Hunters Trace. I have to say I agree with Dr. Kessler 100% on this issue. We've got 2 assistants. No need to rehash the numbers that's thrown out, but why pay extra? It was sold when the 2 assistants were brought on board that bringing the 2 of them on board would create, I think it was a $25,000 a year savings to the taxpayers. I'm not sure if that came about, but we're certainly not going to hit those numbers by paying 2 administrators and 2 assistant administrators. I'm always inclined, let's move a little bit slower and let's get the right person in there, and I don't see the reason to pay for extra right now. Thank you.
Okay. I'll call the citizen to be heard. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Well, first let me state unequivocally, yes, either of the 2 assistant county administrators can fill the needs for the job, long-term, short-term, or what have you. I want to be very clear in that. That is, that redundancy to the organization was a benefit at the time I presented it and asked for it as part of a reorganization, and then thereafter in the administrative code and through the charter, and so that exists. So I want you to know that, and if this is where the board goes, either today, tomorrow, or in the future, I'm happy to have that discussion. But as part of your deliberations here tonight, just a couple additional things that you need to be cognizant of. If you choose an interim administrator, you need to empower one of us with the responsibilities through the charter of the Office of County Administrator. In other words, I've given my last day as being January the 3rd. Now I've got leave I can burn through, and I can sort of fall back to a transitional phase. But you can't have 2 acting administrators. This is my point. So, organizationally, we need to know who the chief is, putting it bluntly. And so, just please, whether it's in this motion or in a subsequent motion, just be clear on what you'd want to do. Now, I'm happy to support Tim, or Lindsay's on maternity leave, or I'd be happy to support her, or whomever you may choose to put in. And then I guess I'll reserve my second point to just see where the conversation goes as far as what that might mean to me personally and the county. But certainly no conflict do I see inherently with the agenda item or with what's being contemplated. I certainly acknowledge the potential cost savings. There is one other point. During the point in time that you have an interim administrator, I just want to highlight to you, and you probably are aware of this, but you need to pay that person in their class. In other words, neither Ms. Stevens nor Mr. Barden are paid within the class of your county administrator. County administrator is classified base salary no less than $75,300, I believe, dollars a year. Neither of these two individuals make that amount. So just keep in mind that you're going to want to bump them up during the period of time that they're interim. You have a responsibility to do that, and they can fall back down when you go to your permanent administrator. But I'd be remiss if I didn't. It's not a big jump, but it's certainly appropriate and worthy of their effort. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, we'll start down this end. Ms. Arts.
Well, first, Commissioner Kessler, thank you for this proposal. I think it makes a lot of sense in several ways. I think, although given what I've heard, we may not save quite as much money as I was thinking we might save from it. I think it will help to assure a smooth transition. And I think Tim is willing to serve and has no interest in the permanent position, and I actually think that's kind of an advantage. Given what we just heard, I'd be inclined to push the start later rather than sooner, but to maximize Mr. Pingree time and to minimize Tim Barden's time during the overlap. And just financially, that would make the most sense. I know there are quite a few people who are interested in applying for the county administrator position, which is really the important decision that we need to make. And I like having somebody who's not interested in that position in the interim role, because it almost gives them a little bit of maybe an unfair advantage, I think. So I'd rather have keep the two separate, and I think I think it was a wonderful proposal, and I would like to see Tim on board to keep us moving smoothly while we search for a new county administrator.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
I like the idea also, in that it would certainly save the county some money not having both the assistant administrator remain in that position, moving one over to that position, and by doing so, save the county some money.
Okay. Mr. Kessler, you want to say any more?
Yeah, I just, I'm not sure of what the question or non-question was regarding the transition time. I was not proposing that Mr. Barden become interim county administrator while Mr. Pingree was here. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I want to talk about that when it comes to my turn here, but I agree.
Right, and so I just want to make that point clear.
I prefer either tabling this or I'll vote no on it and bring it up again. It can be part of the conversation for tomorrow. I'd like to speak with one of our county commissioners coming in very much, and I'd like to hear the new insight as we move forward with the new board as we move forward. But I don't think the idea is without merit. I do think one way or the other, I think it's best to have some period of overlap where you have the current county administrator with either it being Tim as the interim or another person coming in as the interim. And I imagine it would be Tim because of Deputy Administrator Stevens being on maternity leave for another month. I think there should be a period of time where there is some overlap, or of course there's maybe, and that's to be discussed later, but a week of Ben Pingree is in charge and a week of Tim in charge, or some sort of equitable half and half, where they're both here, but they can counsel each other on this is how I do this is what, and see how, if they have questions for each other, easy access. That can be worked out later. I do think there's a period of time where you want to have an overlap, and I favor as much time for overlap as possible, but I understand people who want to have it less. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think that it should be put off until we have our new board in for that discussion tomorrow. But thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner Kessler.
Okay. I think it's a very good idea what you're proposing. In fact, I've talked to Heather and Ben both, not knowing that you were going to put this on the agenda, about this very thing, and they'll attest to that. And then lo and behold, you put it on here, and I said, well, I don't need to worry about it. It's going to come before us. And the reason I gave this a lot, I laid awake at night, several nights, wringing my hands, wondering, how to do this cleanly. And I think this is the cleanest way to do it for the very reasons you said, Lynn, is that, I want it to be transparent. I want to give everybody who wants to be the new county administrator all the same fair playing ground to start. I mean, they all put their applications in, their resumes, and I think this board, and I think this next board starting tomorrow night, we need to go the next step and talk about what we want to see in an administrator and how to direct the staff to go write that advertisement and get it on the street as soon as possible. But I think we need to take the step you want to take tonight and go ahead and I'm going to talk a little bit more here, and so bear with me, because I took the liberty to talk to Ben thinking that this was the road that I was going to try to get us to go down, and we're already going down it. So I asked Ben if we did such a thing as we're talking about doing tonight, if in light of trying to save the county money, which I think is a great idea, and Ben agreed that if he could leave by November 30th. Now, I know that sounds soon, but I know from experience that the longer somebody who has been making the decision hangs around, the harder it is for the new guy or new person to start to make new decisions, because they're just, I don't want to say they're a burden, but you're afraid to do things because they're still here. Ben said that he'd like to leave by November 30th. It would save us a whole month of pay, or 2 months of pay, or a month and a few days of pay, a month of December and a few days in January, as opposed to what we're presently going to do, and pay him out, which he would have gotten paid out anyway, his compensation. It actually saves us a month of pay. It puts Tim on the job, which he just had a few days of vacation. I know he's ready to do. And we'll light a fire on him right off the bat. So I would like to add that, Mr. Kessler, if you would. I don't know if we need to. I know his leave time.
I would consider that a friendly amendment, and it's fine with this.
I agree with everything that you said, and that is exactly the conversation that we had, and the gentleman's agreement and the handshake that we had, if it were to come up, with one addition that I think just was inadvertently missed. Part of that was a positive vote by this board to give me 100% vesting in my deferred compensation.
And that's what I said. That's what I meant. That's what I was trying to say with compensation. I don't know what I called it. Okay. Deferred, right. I meant pay you out the full amount, which you would have gotten by January 3rd anyway.
That's correct.
So,
but you're right. That would save the board. If I could just hit a couple of points, that would save the board 5 weeks of my salary, because I wouldn't be here working it, earning it. It would enable me to start at my new job sooner, so I'd be earning money there. During the remaining days of the month of November, I would dedicate my full attention to empowering and enlightening, if you will, Tim. Though I have to say that's a benefit of your item, Chairman Kessler, is that I've been the boss, to your point, for nearly 4 years, and Tim's been here for most of that, seeing how I do it. Now I just want to make sure I give him, the secret keys to the Grail or whatever, so he can make his own decisions without me. I'll focus on that if this is approved during the remainder of this month. But I would also appreciate your consideration that when he takes the interim mantle on December the 1st, that at that time he would be bumped to that minimum, which
I think we need to take that up in another motion.
Okay, very good.
And let's discuss that separately. But I heard you say then that we could make that a friendly amendment. All those, is that fine with everybody?
Do we want to, if we're going to, it looks like we're moving in this direction. I don't know what time you're planning to head down to, what day you're planning to head down to Miami. I would like to have some sort of recognition of County Administrator Pingree at one of our meetings or something.
I wanted to bring that up, and we don't have another meeting, but I thought about it today. I wanted to ask in the meeting tonight if we could just advertise us getting together. I mean, we're not going to do any business except wish Ben well and hand you a tin cup and there you go on your way. But no, all kidding aside, we need to do that as a board. And if everybody would be okay with us just doing that in a casual setting in the County Commission office, or is that okay? If we do that before November 30th?
Okay with me.
Okay.
Yeah, that would suit my concern.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion. You got it, Evelyn, all that? Okay. And we have a second. Any more discussion?
And I'm gonna still vote no on this because I think it should be for tomorrow, but not because I think it's a bad idea. I talked with Tim and we've already had that conversation.
Okay. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Now, I'll give this back to you if you want, and I'd like to make a motion that we recognize Mr. Barden on December 1st as the new interim county administrator and take his pay to the, I think it's $74,300, but I'm not sure. It may be $75,300.
Just whatever the minimum is. It's a published document.
Yeah, you gave it to us. Let me, I got it here. Yeah, I got it here.
I say 75.
75 even here.
Does it?
To the minimum.
Whatever the minimum.
I think the minimum is okay, but yeah.
Whatever the minimum is, and the same benefits. I mean, the same benefits you now have, no different benefits, just the salary change. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay. Question?
Yes, sir.
Is that, I know you mentioned that, are we required to do that? That's a question.
I believe so.
Sorry, says yes.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure.
Within their classification. I would view that as a
Public to hear that.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So that's a requirement if we're moving somebody into a position that we at least have to pay the minimum salary of that position. Okay. According to what our minimum salary is.
You're still the chairman now. You took it back.
So, right.
the motion.
Do you have a second to it?
I second.
Okay, I missed that. Okay, so there's a motion and a second, no citizens to speak. Call for the motion, let's quiet down back. Call for the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimously.
Chairman, if I may, just to clarify the last motion, tomorrow night I want us to be able to take up with the new board what we want to go forward with for advertisement. I mean, we're going to do what we've passed. I just want to make it clear that that's what we're going to take up tomorrow night, so that there's, we can talk about what kind of qualifications, when we want to get it advertised, where we want to advertise, how far out in the world we want to go, and so forth.
And then that discussion is a healthy discussion to have, and then when that, what is an RFP
Right.
When that's constructed, that'll come back to the board for their approval.
RFQ probably, I'm not sure what we get, but
Yeah, I'm getting mixed up on that.
just advertise.
Yeah, just to put a ribbon on it from, I guess, staff's perspective, I think you hit a couple of key steps this evening as a board. You've identified who your interim is going to be. You've given a start date for that, with an expectation that it's time limited until your permanent replacement's done. You've stated how the transition is going to take place. You've moved up my vesting and my end date. And so I would just concur that tomorrow night, let whatever discussion just be about the permanent next person. So,
I agree.
sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we get off of this, do y'all want to try and set a date while we're all talking together about if we want to do a recognition for County Administrator Pingree?
Let me just double check something. I apologize.
Board meeting in December is the 6th.
The 6th.
Unless you want to come back up and visit us on the 6th.
Well, I'd like nothing more.
I'd like for these board members, I mean, this board
Yeah, I'll be in,
needs to be an integral part of it.
I agree. Commissioners, to be quite honest with you, based on your action tonight, I will not, I don't expect I would have been here on the 6th. I think I'll probably be on the job in my new place.
Will you be here on the 29th, that Monday? Monday the 29th of November, sorry, to be clear.
You know what? Forget it. I'll be here on the 6th. Let's just make it easy. It's a regular board meeting, and it just, something in awards and presentations is what you're thinking?
Is that all you're thinking?
Okay.
That's fine. If you want, it depends if you want more of a celebration for you, but.
No, I'm honored. I've been celebrated too much, thanks. This year.
So we're on to 18, Commissioner Rocks.
Okay, thank you.
Are all your items in the book?
Yes, all four of my items should be here. The first item is concerning roadside litter contracts and plans, and I'm requesting board approval to direct staff to obtain information regarding our current roadside litter collection contracts and plans that pertain to both state and county maintained roads. Citizens have contacted me reporting more trash along 319. Keep Wakulla County Beautiful has been receiving more complaints, and it was a surprise to me that county inmates are no longer picking up trash along state-maintained roads like 319. So there are changes that have occurred, and I'm just requesting an update from all the relevant parties. So I would move to direct staff to obtain information for the board from these various parties regarding roadside litter collection contracts and plans.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rocks, second by Commissioner Brock. Citizens to speak, none. Any further board discussion?
I note that Pamela Joy, who chaired the RCAP committee, was pleased to see this item.
Okay. Call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you. My second item is to expand the upcoming workshop on the licensing of waste haulers, which I believe is scheduled for January 6th, to include discussion about covering truckloads, the truck beds of commercial waste haulers. This was a key recommendation of the RCAP committee, to require that they be covered, which is already the case, to enforce this recommendation by issuing citations at the transfer station, and to have low-cost covers available for sale at the transfer station. I'm not sure that those are the feasible solutions, but I'd at least like to have some discussion about what, if anything, could be done. And Mr. Fleming, if he's still here, he left. Okay, well, he said it was fine to expand the workshop to include this.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Brock. No citizens to be heard. Any further board discussion? Hearing none, call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'm moving on to D as my third item. And we had a presentation recently about black bears. We've had complaints from citizens about bears, and FWC has been receiving an increasing number of complaints. And we were urged to consider trying to address this. The specific recommendation that FWC made was to require bear-proof dumpsters for businesses, residential use of bear-proof garbage cans, or putting out garbage only after 6:30, and requiring garbage haulers to provide customers who request them with bear-proof garbage cans. Franklin County's been doing some of these things. I'd at least like to have some more discussion with the new board. And again, Cleve Fleming is amenable to including this discussion in the January 6th workshop that we're going to have with waste haulers. So I move to add that discussion to the workshop.
Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Brock on item D, reducing bear and human interactions included in the workshop on waste hauling. There is one citizen to speak, Mr. Ralph Thomas.
Good evening. Ralph Thomas, 637 Hunters Trace. Definitely not a huge issue here, but I have a bear problem. We've got plenty of photos I can show with you. I caught them red-handed getting into my garbage can. But that being said, I hope we don't spend a lot of time and money making everybody comply with this. You know, I fixed the problem. I got ratcheting straps I put on my garbage can, and it cost me about $5 to do so, and problem solved. And so I just hope we don't spend a lot of workshop money and a lot of, you know, mandatory garbage cans that we have to buy and things like that. We can solve these problems ourselves, and let's not mandate that, you know, people in Songbird have to have a bear-proof garbage can because I live out in the woods and I might have a problem. We need to fix this ourselves, I think. Thank you.
I hope you'll come to the workshop.
I will.
Okay, no further citizens to speak. Further board comment? Hearing none, call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
And my last item is to request board approval to schedule in February a workshop on smart growth and sustainable communities. I think this fits in nicely with what we'll be doing in February related to the development of a town plan for Crawfordville. John Sewell with Kinley Horn is willing to help to conduct this workshop, and I've also been contacted by someone else who's would be a suitable resource. So I think we could put together a really informative workshop that would be educational for the new board.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Ott, second by Commissioner Brock. No citizens to speak, but Commissioner Stewart.
Is John Sewell going to charge us, or is he going to do this?
He'll come now.
Okay. Well, he don't. As long as we don't have to pay for it.
We have a date.
Jessica, is that first workshop?
I think we're discussing dates tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's better.
Right, we were going to discuss the schedule, but if we stay with the first Thursdays for workshops, that's open in February? Okay.
It'll be finalized tomorrow. That's fine. Okay, call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. County Attorney?
Thank you. I just have two quick updates. We received 2 orders in a couple of the cases that are being litigated on behalf of the county. The first is the Wakulla County versus the Panacea Development Corporation. This is the Wakulla Gardens race restrictive covenant. And we did receive an order from Judge Saul that declared that covenant illegal, unlawful, invalid, and void. And I just wanted to, this is obviously a great victory, and I applaud all of you for taking this issue on, because a lot of boards may have just said that's a private matter and we're not going to deal with it, but you guys actually took it head on. And the second, we received a final order from Judge Sauls in the Bailey versus Wakulla County and Wakulla County Animal Control case. What this opinion and mandate does is determines that the Bailey's constitutional rights were not violated, the trial court's order to provide care and the prohibition on ownership of more than 50 animals was proper, that the search was a legitimate search. Now, this can be appealed until December 6th, so it's not final yet, but I did want to let you guys know that this long-awaited order has finally been issued. And I don't have any further items.
Thank you. County Administration, any further items? Okay. Discussion items by commissioners. Commissioner Watts, Commissioner Green, Commissioner Brock.
Throughout the meeting, I now have two. One, I want to again reiterate that this Saturday from 11 till 2 at Hudson Park, there will be a fish fry benefiting the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. $10 ticket will get you fried shrimp, grits, hush puppies, coleslaw, tea, and it will go to help a great cause. I hope that you can make it out. It'd be awesome. And we have a lot of great sponsors, so come out and see what's going on. It's going to be a great event. Thanks. I also want to take a moment to add my accolades and my words towards the night towards Commissioner Kessler, Commissioner Green. Now, first, I want to recognize their wives, Ann and Jackie. Every comment that people make in the community hits the family hard and friends, so thank y'all for putting up with it. It's not easy. It's been a pleasure to work with y'all. I think our board and the way that we would handle things and our camaraderie will serve as a model. I hope that I can continue to work towards the goals of the diversity that I think we've been working towards and the openness of government. And I appreciate all that y'all have done to help start that process very much. And I very much look forward to the opportunity to finally get to talk to y'all as individuals and as people and friends versus as board members only at public meetings. So thank you very much for what you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart?
I'm ready to go home and eat.
Okay, just before we do that, there's a meeting tomorrow, special meeting, of the Board of County Commissioners, swearing in of 2 new county commissioners added to this board, 5 p.m. here in this chambers. And then the next regularly scheduled Board of County Commission meeting is December 6, 2010 at 5 p.m. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Brock, second by Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.